Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Wilder Ride Listener's Lounge, a place for us to not look at a movie 1 minute at a time, but to look at a person's life maybe one moment by moment, the interesting ones. We kind of leave all the other stuff to the side, but we want to have a chance to play with and talk to a guest. They may have been on our show before. They may have been on a schedule to be on our season that ended up not showing up this year. Maybe it'll be next year, or maybe just cool people we've met in our daily lives. But that's the whole point of our Listener's Lounge. I'm Alan Sanders, your host, and joining me once again, my co-host, Walt Murray. Walt, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great, and I'm excited that our guest today is kind of all three of those things that you mentioned.
He is everything wrapped into one, and I would say normally into one small, tiny package, but when people get a chance to see his headshot and profile later, they're like, wow, okay, that is three into one. It's just three giant, it's like a totem pole, so it's all stacked on top of one another.
Yeah, it's like having an NBA star around.
Yes. You know, I've always wanted to be in a Lord of the Rings movie. I didn't know I was going to be cast as a hobbit. So,
well, you know, if the hobbit costume fits, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, when the camera's on me, it's like, oh, that looks like a normally proportioned individual. Here comes Tom. No, that's a midget. Okay, cool. Sorry, little person.
Well, I noticed how you immediately go to you being the freak and not Tom.
No, it's definitely me, without a doubt.
Well, yes, it is, but I'm just glad that you have that realization.
Dude, I had to learn very early a sense of self-deprecating humor. My friends used to say I was always the last to know when it was raining because it took that long for the drops to get down to me. I was so short, if I sat on the floor, my feet still dangled. That was always a fun one.
Well, you're not that short. I mean, you're only like 4'8", 4'9".
Stop it. Tom Cruise and I are, well, I'm still taller than Tom Cruise, so I've got that going for me.
You're a good bit taller than Tom Cruise.
Oh. Anyway, well, before we bring on our guest, and by the way, folks who have listened to the show, they could read the title card. It's going to be Tom Taylor, a podcaster. He's on multiple shows. Got a chance to meet him on a franchise podcast that you and I, Walt, both grew up loving in the 80s, the Indiana Jones Minute, but then branched out to some other shows and became an author as well, has one book out that's been out for a few years. We've got another book in the works. And who knows what else we're going to talk about. We're going to bring him on in just a little bit. But before we do, Walt, it's been a week since we last had a chance to hang out. So what's been going on with you?
Well, finally, we're not in the 90s. So it's finally actually started to feel like fall. And I guess even though we're recording 2 weeks ago, tomorrow is officially the first day of fall. And
yeah, from when we're recording, yes.
Yeah, from when we're recording. And this is the best the weather has felt in like a year and a half. So
it's
I'm
awesome.
a happy camper. So
you know, a few episodes back, we talked about all of my camping woes the last time we tried camping. We're set to camp the last week of September in through the first week of October.
Oh, that's going to be great. You're going to have great weather.
I'm hoping we don't have one of those bounce back, say, oh, look, Indian summer.
Yeah.
Let's get back to 90s for just the time you're on your camping trip.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
I don't think it will. I think even if it were to get warm during the day, it feels like the evenings have decided, okay, we're going to get into the mid-50s from now on, even if we climb to the 80s again. Although the 10-day forecast I was looking at only had like 80 degrees as the high in like 7 to 8 days, and it was just 80 degrees. It was never really above that. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. If we had cooler weather all year, I'd be great. And of course, we've had hurricanes roll through. We've had everything else. So this year is just, I mean, it's a mess. So you don't know what you're getting day to day.
No, but you know what? It's like we're living in the box of chocolates of a Forrest Gump movie.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, you kind of are a Renaissance man. You kind of pay attention to a lot of things.
Is that a fancy way of saying I'm a jack of all trades, master of none?
A know-it-all.
Oh, okay, know-it-all.
Yes.
That sounds even better.
There you go. Perfect.
My,
Well, I was
my
gonna
wife
ask
would
you.
not disagree.
No, she even posted that earlier.
Fold her arms and goes, see, even your friends know.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Hey, Mr. Clever Man, think you're funny. Why don't you go out there and do something productive like mow the lawn? Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't
she
have
all
to
of a
do
sudden
that
sound like
much
church
longer.
lady. Like, when did she turn into that?
Yeah, hopefully she's not listening, or hopefully she is listening today.
No.
So,
Well, I'll find out in 2 weeks.
yes, you will. Yes, you will. Well, I was going to ask you, have you been watching any of the sports not in front of fans?
Oh, I just figured out I thought that was like, is that a new show?
Yeah.
But-
Well, yes, but it's called the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball.
You know what? I have not really been back into the sports mode. It's ironic with what I do. One of the things we cover for local audiences is high school football, and I've been really into the return of high school football. But while we're doing that, since I'm in the studio, I guess the wrestling, I don't know, whatever that is, the kabuki theater of pretend fighting is going on in the ring. And it's so funny because they've got all of these screens set up like everybody's watching the wrestling from their living room on Zoom or something. And it just is really weird because they're still going through the motions and still piping in noise as if they're somehow in front of a crowd, but no one's there.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, like, the NHL did not pipe in noise originally. I think they started later in the playoffs, but Major League Baseball has some. But I watched just the back end of the Atlanta Falcons game yesterday as they blew another 500-point lead.
Hey, what's a 20-point lead?
Yeah. Hey, to the Falcons, that's nothing. They can blow a 20-point lead like no other professional team. But that the fake crowd noise really started getting on my nerves. It's like watching the old episodes of MASH where they're walking outside and you still hear the audience laughing, and you know
Right.
it's a laugh track. Well, it's the same thing. Like, there's nobody in the stands and you're getting all that fan noise. And I think that is my new pet peeve. It is so, I would rather have silence. Well, and also it'd help a brooding Falcons fan to be able to brood better, but
it works better in baseball because it's sort of like they
it
can
does.
time when the crowd needs to be like, go from the low Twitter to the, okay, there's a hit. It's like, okay, bring up the volume, bring up the noise. It's almost like they've got a soundtrack to a video game or something that automatically knows it can react spontaneously to the action on the field.
Well, and the weird thing I noticed with football was that they have the same, like, the crowd reacts the same way for both teams. So if the visiting team scores a touchdown, the crowd goes crazy. And that, I think, is what annoyed me the most, is that it's like, no.
Yeah, it is weird to have people cheering for the Falcons when there should be boos.
Yeah, which is most of the time.
For the local crowd.
Well, and then I noticed that the Green Bay Packers, when they scored touchdowns, just jumped up into the empty seats.
No, nobody held me. What the hell? Normally I get to sit here for a while.
Yeah, it's just a really weird world to watch sports like this. I think the most normal one is probably NASCAR, just because you can just hear the engines. And,
Well, yeah. Though, I think baseball missed out on a great opportunity for a tie-in with Mattel or whoever makes the Guess Who game. Did you ever play that with your kids where they've got all the little profiles of people and you play, okay, my character is the character I'm trying to guess, is he wearing glasses? And you have to flip down whatever and try to figure out who's the... I'm like, they could have been doing that with fan participation between innings. They could have had all these like fan cards set up and played the world's biggest game of Guess Who.
That would be awesome. Well, and I guess some of the stadiums have had fans send in their pictures and they put them in the stands.
Oh yeah, that's what they're doing. Yeah,
And
You can have
then
your-
some of them have like famous people set up. So, one of the players was saying he wants to hit a home run and hit Shaquille O'Neal in the face because I guess they had Shaquille in the outfield. So it's really it has become a very bizarre world that we live in right now.
You know what? At this point, you heard Tom Hardy's going to be playing the new James Bond, right?
Oh my gosh! So yes,
So
I did.
I
To answer
figure-
your question,
Since now he's going to have two franchises, he can like come back in time to whatever and pretend that we have a normal civilized world when he's just trying to defeat the bad guys trying to kill everybody. And then he can jump forward to Mad Max where everyone has been killed and now we live in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. So he gets to do the bookends of where we live today.
so he can be both the cause and the solution to.
Oh, he's kind of like alcohol.
Exactly.
The cause and solution to all of man's problems.
Yeah, well, and I'll ask you a little bit more about what your thoughts are on Tom Hardy later, because I actually watched a couple of Bond movies this week, but I don't know what to think about that one.
You know, he was in my top 3 when we played that game on BK on the Air about who would we pick.
Yeah.
And he was in my top 3. I thought Tom Hardy would be a brilliant choice because they've gone to that more brooding, physical, not necessarily drop dead, dashing good looks, but somebody who can still have the charisma to figure out, to be Bond. I mean, Daniel Craig has done a great job. I've loved the Daniel Craig Bond.
Oh, I actually watched 2 of the Daniel Craig movies this week, and I think he's awesome.
Quantum of Solace aside, as far as the weakest of the new James Bonds,
Yeah.
I still think he's done a great job as Bond. And I do think you got to cast an actor that may be a little bit older on the screen, because it's harder to believe somebody who's in their 20s would have relationships around the world, would have a sense of what's going on, would have that experience, would have the wisdom of an agent that has been at least in the field. And I think you had to go with somebody maybe a little more seasoned. So that's why I'm okay with Tom Hardy. I know there's other people like, oh my God, he'll only do like 2 or 3 movies and then he'll be done. Well, okay, then he does 2 or 3 movies and he'll be done. Still a James Bond movie. Stop complaining.
Well, since we're going to go ahead and have the conversation now, yeah. So
Sorry,
I don't
you
think
started it.
Yes, I did. I did, and I'm fine with that. I think that criticism is kind of hollow to me, because with what we're expecting from Bond at this point, with it being a much more physical role, we're going to have a hard time seeing anybody get through more than about 3 or 4 movies.
Well, you could do Pierce Brosnan and just write really shitty scripts and be done with 4 movies or 5.
Yeah,
I think
go and
5,
add terrible acting and...
I wonder if our guest is cringing in the background. We have no idea what he feels about Bond. We'll have to bring him on just to kind of set the Bond
I have a feeling
debate.
we're about to know.
Well, the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on, because the whole Bond thing I think we'll bring up with Tom, so that way it will give us a chance to roll into it, is, I did have a chance to get out on the lake while it was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah, I saw some of your pictures. Those were great.
Yeah, Mother Nature played a trick on me. She said, look, it feels cool outside. In fact, it's so cool that when you guys jump in the lake to just, cool, like to jump in, because, if you're on the boat for a while, you might need to, jump in the lake for just 30 to 60 seconds, depending how long you take. So we're going to make you feel nice and cool and calm and like, I didn't bother to put sunscreen on. And man, that sun still works. The sun was out.
Yes, it does.
My face hurts. My thighs hurt. My neck hurts. I'm like, what the? And I was like, oh my God, I'm like red as a freaking lobster. And it didn't even feel hot. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Oh, and that's where they get you.
I'm supposed to be smarter than this. Guess not. Once it goes back to my wife, cross arms saying, mm-hmm.
Right.
Well,
yes.
All right. Well, before we bring our guest on, any last comments you got?
No, man, I'm just looking forward to having Tom on. I think I say this just about every week because I'm always excited about our guests. But Tom is one of my favorite people, and he's one of the guys that we met out of the Movies by Minute group, and he was, helpful to us and encouraging to us from the get-go, and we've kind of gotten to know him a little bit, so I'm really excited about today.
Dude, he's already in the green room. You don't have to grease his palm anymore. I mean,
come on. Yeah, that's right. Glad he showed up.
He's already in. I get when you were trying to get him. But so,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's go ahead and part the curtains and welcome inside the listener's lounge via the Johnny Carson stage, a good friend of the podcast, someone who we admire on his podcast and somebody who we enjoy having on our show. We have now joining us Tom Taylor. Tom, welcome.
Hello, guys. Thank you very much. It's awesome to be here.
Hey, Tom.
Listen to that voice. That's the voice that just keeps me, focused when I'm cutting the grass or doing menial chores around the house.
Yeah, you got to find new podcasting opportunity or podcast listening opportunities these days. It's not like the commute anymore. It's like I'm doing the.
It's no longer the
dishes.
commute. It's
I'm doing the lawn.
Right.
Mowing the lawn, sweeping the floor.
Yeah.
Ignoring the dogs. I like you ignoring your son.
Sure.
All right, kid, come on. Put the fire out yourself. I'm listening to a podcast.
I'm so sorry. I'm in the middle of something. I'm listening to a podcast.
Oh, yeah, I get the reverse. I'm like, I see my daughter's text like 911 emergency, please call. I'm like, I'm in the middle of recording. It's going to have to wait.
Look, Walt's almost to the obituary part. I'll get with you in a minute.
So Well, we do want to welcome you and join us. It's a different kind of a format than the movies by minutes. That kind of got thrown sideways for us the way we had scheduled our guests in our season earlier and some other things going on. But this was something we had thought about doing and said, you know what? Well, we don't want to be silent for a year. Let's go ahead and kick off our Listeners Lounge. And so thank you for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. This is awesome.
Well, let's start at the beginning. For folks who don't really know you, and Walt was actually asking me, he goes, I don't really know what Tom does besides brilliant podcasts and excellent satire and commentary, and also writes books. What do you do?
Let's see. What do I do?
Don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do?
Subtle innuendos follow. I get up in the morning, I make a cup of coffee, then I make the pot of coffee for my wife who gets up later than I do. And then I sit at my computer and I work for an educational publishing company, and I'm an editor over there, and I work on, trying to keep these kids engaged and active in this crazy, crazy time where they're not at school necessarily, and things are weird.
Are you the one that looks at the examples and things and says, Jake has 17 apples, but Lisa doesn't, and how many apples does Jake have to give her the majority of his apples, but less than 20% of them?
Exactly.
Or something like that?
No, I used to do that stuff. That was a while ago, but I would have fun just putting all of my friends' names into those things. Jerry and Pete have or has a hockey game after school today. That kind of stuff.
Alan Sanders jumps in the lake for 20 minutes. How sunburned will you be?
And no, it'd be like Alan's friends decide they've had enough and submerge him for more than 5 minutes, although he can only hold it for 4.
Are they charged with manslaughter?
Where is the best place to dispose of his carcass?
Yeah.
From all of our mafia work, pick from the following. Should they tie him in chains, put a brick around his neck, or both?
I'm picturing a bunch of would-be mafia contenders, like sitting at little desks with their Scantron sheets. Like, it's probably C. I'll put C. It's usually C, right?
You got like the brick in the back, like the lunk who's just like, man.
Pencil's delicious.
I just wanted to kill people. I didn't know I was gonna have to take a test.
Well, and the notes home are great. They all of a sudden is doing exceedingly well.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's cool though. You get a chance, and you've probably, if you've done this for a little while, you've sort of watched the evolution of educational materials from, the hard kind of reading, writing, arithmetic to more colorful, more engaging. I know all the textbooks that I've saw with my girls going to school, a lot of blocks and call outs, so that way it doesn't feel like you're just reading nothing but newspaper type. There's a lot of sections to help break up the information.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's really interesting just this year, and this even happened before, like, a lot of the things that are happening now, like the resurgence of like Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. Like earlier this year and last year, we were getting involved in this, I'm going to forget the term now because I'm not working on it anymore, but it's, culturally responsive education, which is just sort of like a big, like New York City is doing this. And there's a big, and I think Florida is as well, a big push towards the importance of, not just like, cultural, learning about like different cultures and stuff like that, but just sort of like getting kids into the mindset of, oh, you know what? Not everybody in this classroom has the same experience as you. Whether that's because they're a different race or a different, economic background or anything, or different family background or something. Like, just, don't assume that, the kid next to you, I don't know, understands or has your same understanding about something. And I started to work on that earlier this year, and then I got pulled off it for something else. And I'm kind of disappointed because it was very interesting and seems like something the world needs right now. And it was very cool.
I got you. So something like, just because Walt is from Appalachia doesn't mean he plays the banjo.
Exactly right. Right. Or even,
don't make this assumption, although he does come to school barefoot and you can make some conclusions.
Right. Or even just like, I remember there was like a story in one of our books about like the Titanic, and it was kind of like a, the rich girl who gets to, have the run of the ship, and the poorer girl who's only stuck on like the lower decks or whatever and stuff. And, we're just asking questions like, have you ever been excluded from something? Is there something that you're not allowed to do because of who you are or where you come from or something? And just kind of like getting kids, like even the privileged kids, even getting them thinking about this kind of stuff and maybe poking little dents in the idea that their experiences, applies to everybody or something. and seeing things from other people's perspectives.
What I love about that, and honestly, it's kind of in the background what we love about doing this kind of talk show. Everyone's got a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got something interesting in their lives, and we want to bring it up and highlight it. And I think that's awesome. I think if we can get kids to start having conversations and not deciding, arms crossed in the corner, holding my breath, it's my way or no way.
Right.
Maybe we'll be in a little bit better position come in a few generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I hope we can get to a point soon where not every idea is a war.
Yes,
Because-
that would be nice too.
No, I want to die on this hill.
Right.
Taco Bell beats Del Taco. I'm sorry.
Right.
Right.
Well, one of my best friends since 5th grade is Chinese, and all of his grandparents came over from China to the United States, but both of his parents grew up in Alabama, and so he has kind of an interesting mixed background because of that. But I had gone by our old middle school over the weekend and taken some pictures of this horrible mural that's out front, and had posted that on our class Facebook page and just said, hey, guess where I am? And when I sent the pictures to Brian, his comment really caught me. I didn't even notice this. I just snapped the picture and moved on. And he said, the first thing I noticed is all the kids on here are white, and it's terrible artwork.
Right.
And it really is. I guess I ought to post these in our listeners group when we air this. But I was kind of shocked. I was like, Brian, as long as we were there, it never occurred to me. But then I went back and looked. The building was built in 1962 in what at the time was a rural county in North Atlanta, Cobb County. And, my comment back was, you know what? They did not even know the word diversity at that point.
Yeah.
In that county. Like, it didn't even occur to them that a black student or an Asian student might come to this school. That was just not even on their radar. So I think, what you're saying of being able to look at other people and put myself in their shoes.
Yeah.
And be able to figure out how to relate to them and be friends with them. That's really life-changing for everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, like you described, the all-white mural. I was raised in like the whitest of white Connecticut town. And, I could count the non-white people in my school on one finger, maybe two. And that just wasn't a part of my experience until I got to college and got out of the town and, just started meeting other people and stuff. And I was like, and it took me a long time, even as like a young, early adulthood, to, I don't know, not see nothing but like, oh, there's a black guy coming towards me on the street. Like not even like a concern thing or anything. Just like, oh, there's somebody who doesn't look like me. And that's the only thing I'm thinking about him. It's like, I was raised in such a white, upbringing that anything different was an adjustment to me for a while. And that kind of stuff takes hold. It takes a while to grow out of that sometimes, if that's all you had for a long time.
You needed to have that American Graffiti moment where your growing up meant you did have to leave.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not going to go down too far because I like where we are. I feel good. We're playing in the shallow end of the pool. I'm not going to go in the deep end.
Right.
But I will say I loved my college experience simply because it did open a much wider and broader view of the world. And my concerns with my girls now in college is it feels like that view is also kind of now constricting in ways. And I like the idea of, hey, you know what? I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just going to show you there's a lot out there you might not have been aware of.
Yeah.
And now it's time to start making your own choices. You don't have to follow, some automaton programming from the little town you grew up in. Now I'm going to just show you this wide menu of choices. It's up to you to pick what you like.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And that's how I went to school. I loved it. I love being challenged with bigger and wider ideas. And I still to this day feel like that's a founding part of me is there's always more. I always want to say, okay, that's great, but there's always something else. There's something more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't give me just your view of the story because you're giving me what you want me to hear. I want to hear everything. I want to know the whole story.
Yeah.
I just, that curiosity has always been something I've had.
Yeah, and just knowing the whole story, and like Walt was saying before, like if we can just get rid of like the all or nothing, yes or no, right or wrong, fist fight mentality of like having differences with anybody. Like my son and I are like-minded, politically, as politically as you can be as a 13-year-old. But he'll say, so-and-so's a jerk, so-and-so's a monster. And I'll go, well, and one of the thousands of podcasts I've been involved in is ABC Devo, where we discuss all the Devo songs. So I always quote to him, Sam, it's never straight up and down. It's never straight up and down. And, there's of course, another nerdy quote you can use is, only a Sith thinks in absolutes.
That's right.
If you are absolutely right and that guy's a monster, one of you has to be wrong.
Right.
At least a little bit.
Well, and that's the thing, learning not to talk in absolutes or paint with such wide brushes.
Mm-hmm.
That bothers me as well. When I have my conversations with my daughters, they'll use, and this bothers me as well, they'll use an outlier. They'll find for sake of, safety of our conversation. Well, George Burns smoked a cigar every day. Why can't we smoke every day? Okay, you can't use one person to paint everybody with the same brush.
Right.
Everyone's unique, Let's all be that way. Let's all be unique.
Yes.
I don't want another me. I can't. My wife doesn't want another me. She's like, I can barely handle the one of you. So
right.
She ain't the only one. Who was that? So, well, and Tom, I agree with you. Growing up and kind of that, I was more in a little bit of a transitional world when I went through school, but still, it was a very small number of minority students at our school.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really until I went to college that I was around a bigger, I don't know, like a more diverse crowd, I guess.
Yeah.
And for some of my friends, it was when they went to the military and whatever. So I'm glad that is being taught earlier and earlier. And I think, one thing about life is for everybody, life is hard. There are tough things there. You're going to go through difficult times and you're going to have difficult things to deal with. And I think if you can get to a place where you're at least sympathetic to that with other people and where you can relate on a level where you say, ultimately we're all pretty much alike. Some of us make bad choices and go down a terrible path.
Right.
But it doesn't matter what your background is, you can do that. And really being sympathetic to other people is one of the most important life skills that kids can develop.
Absolutely. Yeah. If we can get them thinking that way at a young age, maybe there's hope for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you end up? You started in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And you are in Chicago now. Tell us a little bit about your path to get there.
I went to college in Boston at Emerson College, and that was cool. And then I kind of kicked around my parents' couch for a while, for a couple of years. And then, I don't know, like
Honey, he came back.
Isn't that wonderful? I hope he stays forever. Oh my God, he's staying forever. Oh boy, what do we do?
He's been here 2 weeks. Get him out.
But how did I get it? Oh yeah, I started dating a girl from Chicago. And so that kind of, I'm like, you know what? I could move out of my parents' house and I could go live in Chicago instead. So I went to grad school out here, and then she and I eventually broke up, but it was all amicable. Don't worry about it. It's okay. We're all friends.
Okay.
And then,
wow, I was about to really get upset there, Tom. I'm glad.
See, that was
Thank
the
you
cliffhanger
for being empathetic to my needs.
Yes, exactly right. I was not. You know why we broke up? I look back on this fondly. We were supposed to be looking for apartments together.
I look back on this fondly. Bitch.
I wouldn't change a thing, and I feel bad about that. But we lived about like 2 blocks from each other, and we've been dating for like a couple of years. And we were like, okay, we'll move in together. We'll find a place together. And the weekend we were supposed to do that, I found out that this cool theater downtown was having this like weekend long Warner Brothers retrospective. And awesome. Like one weekend I saw like Superman, The Exorcist, Blazing Saddles, what else? God, All the President's Men, Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, wow.
It was insane. It was like it was the greatest movie going experience I've ever had. I just like literally all weekend I was in the theater, And I got back from that, just like, maybe we should break up. I'm like, I guess. Okay. All right. Okay, buddy.
Because you went to go see like 7 movies
I think that
in a
was
row?
that was the cap of a sort of trend. That I was not the best boyfriend. I was not the most attentive. I was not the most empathetic. I was empathetic, but I wasn't like, I don't know. I liked my own space, and I think I wasn't totally down with the idea of moving in at the time. And
Could you imagine her podcasting 3 nights a week?
exactly right. Yeah, it takes.
Hey, you got pissed about a movie. I got news for you. This is going to take about 6 months.
It just gets worse.
Well, I can tell you some of my exes that would listen to this would be like, now I see why Walt and Tom would get along so well, because
Right.
that jackass was...
Look, it's like recently, the movie theaters have been slowly reopening, and a lot of them have been playing classic movies.
Yeah.
And everybody's, because I don't go to the movies a whole lot. It's just, I don't like spending $50 to go see a movie that's going to come out in Blu-ray that I can own in 2 months.
Yeah.
So, but they've been doing like these $3 and $4 and $5 specials, and they're all things like Raiders and Jaws and Jurassic Park and Harry Potter. And I've been going, and people are like, you don't ever go to the movies. I'm like, well, because I'm guaranteed I'm going to love these. These are like my friends I'm
Right.
going to go see.
These are
And my
pre-sold.
friends are going to cost me $5 to get in, not 50. So I'm good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't done any of that this whole time, and I keep. Amazingly, there's no like convenient drive-ins or anything around me, and it's kind of, maybe I need to just try harder.
They're not even opening with like limited seating and stuff.
Oh, there's some of that. There
theaters?
is some of that, and I'm biding my time a little bit. I'm not quite ready to dive in. I think I'm gonna wait.
Now you got to do what feels best for you.
Yeah.
Now me, I've been got the theater to myself.
Cannonball!
Yeah, well, for me, the whole time, I'm like, some stupid idiot eats a bat, and I can't go to the movies. What's the problem?
No, seriously, we just went to go see Tenet. That was the first new movie I
Oh,
went to go
right.
see.
Yeah.
So it was my daughter. Okay, so this is how it started. My second daughter down. She calls me, or actually she texts me. She goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm playing a video game." "Why? What's up?" And she said, "Well, can I call you?" I said, "I guess, but I'm playing a video game." And so she calls me and she said, "Do you want to go see a movie?" I'm like, "Now?" She goes, "No, but just sometime." I'm like, "Well, okay, that's a really strange question." So I'm sure. Okay, nice open-ended. She goes, "Okay, because I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot, having just seen Tenet, and I know I've got to see it again,
Oh.
and I really think I need to see it with you."
Oh, it's awesome.
So we just went back to see it. My other daughter, my oldest, came with us. Dude, freaking, I don't know how you feel about Christopher Nolan, about
Yeah,
movies like
he's awesome.
Inception or Interstellar. This movie blew me away. Just
Wow.
awesome. And it was just the 3 of us in our own
Oh,
private
nice.
viewing of Tenet.
That's
It was
great.
awesome.
That's it. That's an idea. Like if you can do like the buying your tickets online, you can see like how full the theater is like 10 minutes before
Yeah.
showtime or something. Like, well, all right. I like those odds. All right, let's go.
Yeah, go to the 2 p.m. Tuesday afternoon showing. You can pretty much
Right.
guarantee.
That's exactly what we went
Oh,
to.
nice.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. We knew that chances are the younger kids weren't probably going to be flooding the theater. I wasn't going to worry about a bunch of teens and tweens in there.
Yeah.
And it was too early for a lot of parents and stuff or working folk to get in there.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you know what? Let's go to the 4 o'clock show all to ourselves.
Nice.
It was phenomenal.
Well,
Wow.
Alan, when you sent me that text saying how good it was, I just happened to be talking to my daughters. I said, "Oh yeah, Alan says Tenet's great," and they're like, "You haven't seen Tenet yet? What are you doing?" Like they started raving about how great it was. I was like, "Okay, quit giving away everything.
Right, right.
I guess I'm going to see it now."
Yeah. I think in the back of my mind, I have like, what is it? No Time to Die, the next Bond. I heard you guys
Yes.
talking about Bond in the
Yes.
green room. Yeah. And I think that might be the one. That's my line. I think once that comes out, I'll be like, all right, I got to go back to the theater. Okay.
Gotta make it. Okay, so I did kind of tease that earlier since we had played a game on a radio show that I'm on where we talked about, okay, we know this is the last Daniel Craig Bond. If you could pick whoever you wanted, whatever actor to be the next Bond, but not like dead. You can't say Cary Grant. It's got to be somebody,
Right.
an alive, real actor today. And Tom Hardy was actually in my top 3.
Nice.
I've always thought he was sort of a chameleon. He can play rough and rugged, but he can play sophisticated. I think he's got that look that he can sort of charm, but he doesn't have sort of the Pierce Brosnan look where it's like pretty boy. It's somebody who can be in a situation where he can do the rough things.
Yeah.
And it just feels like that's the direction Bond's been going. So I thought he'd be a good choice, and kind of happy he is.
Yeah. I mean, is that overhearing you guys from the green room was the first time I had heard that story that is he officially Bond, or is that like a strong rumor?
No, he's officially Bond.
Whoa.
Yeah, they made the announcement.
Oh man.
Unless he turns it down. This has been in the UK the last couple of days, and in fact, the Telegraph already came out and said why he's the wrong choice. You got to have somebody come up with that. So
Yeah.
Right.
speaking in our contrarian world, like, oh, you're going to give an actor an opportunity of a lifetime? Well, let's go ahead and chop the legs out from under him and tell
Here's
him
why you're a
he's wrong.
fool. Yeah.
Right. The 8 reasons why you're a fool, and it's clickbait.
Right. Yeah. If the headline features the word here's, here's why this is a bad idea. Here's the reasons this is going to happen. Yeah.
So what do you think of Tom Hardy then in that? Now that you're hearing it for the first time,
I mean, like
he could
20 minutes
something
into
could
the
happen
idea.
6 months from now, and he decides it's not all it's cracked up to be and change. But right now, he's the announced replacement.
I feel like he could be a good kind of Bond. I think I can kind of get behind that a little bit. The only thing I'm sticking on is, yes, the kind of stab you under the table, Sean Connery kind of Bond. I can see him doing that. Or even like the Daniel Craig, kind of like, sort of not quite deadly serious, but, very straight about it. But I feel like there needs to be a little room for the Roger Moore-ish kind of, not the double take pigeon thing or anything like that, or
that was awesome.
Right. But
the pigeon double take is still one of my favorite things in movie history. And the fact that at that moment he was driving a boat through a bazaar.
Yeah.
But Tom, I think if I hear you right, the thing I miss about Roger Moore, and I think the thing that still has me stuck on Roger Moore as my favorite, I think, even though Daniel Craig is really, really good, I miss a little bit of that campiness to it.
Yeah. I'm thoroughly enjoying the Daniel Craig ones, which do take it all very seriously. This is like a major motion picture action film that we're, putting everything behind, and we're not a lot of winks to the camera or anything like that. But I do kind of feel like, I don't know, you might need a little of that with Bond at the end of the day.
Didn't they try that with Pierce Brosnan? Just sort of the campiness, and maybe it wasn't the wink at the camera, but just kind of over the top goofiness, and it wasn't accepted.
There's something between those. Yeah.
Yeah. But there are some people who can pull it off, and there are some people who can't. And
True.
Pierce Brosnan can't. Or he didn't, one or the other.
Right.
He is my least favorite Bond. I'll admit that right up front. But
really? Worse than George Lazenby?
Now, see, I like George Lazenby.
I was going to say, Lazenby has some positives.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Pierce
definitely my
Brosnan,
favorite
maybe
Bond
not.
movie, and I don't have a problem with him
the look of a
as
male
guy.
model.
Yeah, well, I get that. And I think one of the things I really liked about his movie was that the script was so good. I thought it was a great story.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad 60s era Bond. And,
right.
when you have Kojak as the bad guy, I mean, how do you go wrong?
Seriously, Telly Savalas was great.
Yeah.
So,
the hard part rewatching, because my wife got me the Bond anthology on Blu-ray for Father's Day a couple years ago, and I went through and watched them. When I got to that one, I was like, his voice and his accent in the back half is really weird. I don't get it. And then I went and read, he couldn't do the accent, so the actor who was actually doing the accent redubbed all of his lines for him.
Because he's Australian or something, right? He's not even...
Yeah.
He's Australian. So...
Well, that doesn't mean you can't do accents. You just couldn't do the Scottish, I guess. I don't know. It was just... I don't know. It just didn't strike me all that well. It wasn't horrible, but I thought...
I would say he probably wasn't the best choice, but for the one movie, it was fine. I like it better than most people, I think, but I still don't like Pierce Brosnan.
But do you like it because of him, or do you like it because of the story? Because it's not, for me, it's not because of him. I rank him as my least favorite, not because it was a poorly written story. I just think he was a poorly executed Bond. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think that I like it because of the story, and I think he did a fairly decent job portraying Bond. And I think he was in a very difficult place because you have a very, very, very popular person who is Bond, in everybody's mind, he's Bond. And then you take over that role. and you're the first person to ever take over the role of Bond, that's a horrible place to be. I mean,
Right.
like you can't do anything right.
Yeah.
And
You know, it's almost like they had polling that said they'll never accept somebody else. So it's sort of like the new Coke versus swapping out the sugar for old Coke. We're going to put in
right.
George
Yeah.
Lazenby, and when people revolt, we'll say, okay, he's
Right.
gone. We're going to bring in somebody else. But hey, he used to play a spy on TV. You'll love him.
Yeah, it's kind of like me in
Yeah.
college when I'd ask girls out and they'd go out with me and they're like, I just came off a horrible breakup. And I'm like, well, crap. I'm the George Lazenby of your dating life.
I'm rebound
Yeah,
guy.
right.
The next
I
guy's
am
going to be
not
That's
awesome.
going to last.
I am not going to stick around long.
I think you're going to find the next guy very charming.
That's right. The other guy people are going to love, and I'm going to go become a hippie and smoke pot somewhere.
Well, we
All
have
right,
the same.
I didn't-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go
I
ahead.
was just going to say we have the same issue over at Indiana Jones World, Indiana Jones Minute, where people are supposedly there's going to be an Indy 5, and all the supposition is that okay, Harrison Ford is in there, but surely they're going to pass it off to somebody else. Like there's going to be they're going to reboot or there's always the conversation about who else could play Indiana Jones, and I'm always like, no, nobody. Nobody else can play Indiana Jones. And I know that kind of thinking has been sort of disproven sort of in a way by the James Bond series. Like you've got a bunch of different guys who none of them could have been replaced, and they were all replaced and they went fine. But the difference is that for 40 years, Indiana Jones has been this one guy.
Right.
Right.
Like over the same period of time, there were like 3 or 4 Bonds, and you got used to that idea. So I don't know. It's hard. I know there's only 4 movies that he's been in, but it's hard to.
3.
I don't know.
Wasn't it 3?
It might have been 3 actually. Yeah. What was I thinking? It was like.
I want to assert that it's only 3.
Oh yeah, he was in that Young Indiana Jones too, though. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's
That
true.
counts.
That's true.
Look, as we're going to get to now, it's a perfect segue. As these guys have proven, sometimes if you only watch one of those movies, 1 minute of the movie at a time, it's actually not bad. It's when you string them all together at once, you go, well, wait a minute. Hold on.
Right.
So
Yeah. Or the
let's
opposite.
go ahead and
can
talk
happen.
about then. Let's talk about then the podcasting side of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And it does have a dovetail back to, if people can't figure out, by the way, that we all have the same sort of background in movies. We're all of that same
Oh yeah.
Gen X background. So we all probably have a lot of the same movies that hit us in the sweet spot between 79 with Alien all the way through the 80s.
Yeah.
But Raiders, obviously a big movie for all of us. We're all Indiana Jones fans. So let's make that bridge. When did the podcasting world come crashing on top of Tom Taylor, who decided, I need some help with this idea? Or did people reach out to you? Because I know you got a couple of your buddies that make it a triumvirate of nothing but fun and laughter.
Oh yeah. I mean, I forget the sequence of events, but I know that I was listening to the Star Wars Minute. I was a big fan of that, as you guys are. And this is like, in the early, I think the first episode I listened to was they're burning the Jawas. They found the Jawas, like that's how early I got into it and stuff. And my friend Pete Mummert was also listening, and we'd text back and forth a little bit. And I didn't know Pete super well. He was like a friend of a friend. My friend Jerry Porter, he was good friends with both of us, and we were sort of good friends with each other. And he said, we should do a show we should do like Raiders of the Lost Ark or something. We should do like Indiana Jones, like the Star Wars Minute guys are doing Star Wars. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I was talking about that with my wife, I think, and she bought me for Christmas like a cool mic, a nice one of the Blue Yeti mics. She's like, I'm like, I guess I could do this. All right, I guess maybe I could do a podcast, maybe. And at the same time, my other friend, Mike DiMaria, I have 2 friends. My other friend, Mike DiMaria, said, hey, we should do a podcast. You, me, and our friend Dan should do a podcast. I'm like, okay, let's do the Caddyshack Minute. Because I had to explain to him the whole idea because they weren't listening to Star Wars Minute or anything. We'll do the Caddyshack Minute. We'll do 1 minute of the movie at a time. That'd be great. And he's like, all right. So 2 sets of friends both said yes at the same time, or I said yes to Pete and they said yes to me. And so I had like 2 shows going almost at the same time. And
your wife was looking for the receipt. Where do I return that?
yeah, what have I done? It's the worst
What's
Christmas
the term?
ever. Yeah.
Is it 90 days? Is it,
Right. I can just return
I'm
the husband,
fine with
maybe.
in-store credit.
Right. Yeah. Spent a lot of time in the basement.
So no, in all seriousness then, as far as getting into podcasting, because in some ways, it's like radio. There's an audience. You're trying to put a product, you're putting something that you hope is engaging, entertaining. Some people do podcasts where it's more like a bunch of people just, shooting the shit and it's not going anywhere. But this had kind of a structure and a format, and you grew an audience. So what was that like? Did you have any background in theater or broadcast or anything to get you ready for this?
No, nothing like that at all. Jerry is a drummer and he's been in a lot of bands and stuff. So he has the closest experience like that of just kind of, and he would liken it to that all the time as we were like, how do we get our audience to grow and stuff? What do we do? And he's like, it's just like music. You do this and this and this. I'm like, okay, I don't understand that, but okay, you sound pretty convinced. So let's do that. And yeah, it was, we had no idea how it was going to take off. And I don't even know, like to this day, I don't even know if we're like a super successful show or not, because I have nothing to compare it to. But it's cool. It's weird.
Well, let's
because
compare it to Joe Rogan. How are you against Joe?
I'm just south of Joe Rogan. Yeah. Somewhere between Joe Rogan and Mark Maron, I think. No.
Aren't we all?
Yes.
Right.
Good one, Walt. That's a great question.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Where do you rank against, I don't know, the Titan?
Yeah,
well, we're below him.
It's the Rogan meter.
How far below? Well, he's sitting on us.
It's kind of like we're the Falcons versus a good team.
Right.
We're the Falcons versus anybody.
Well, Tom, when you sat down and started working through the movies by minute format, which of course we have worked in for 2 years and probably will eventually get back to at some point. Did you find that was a challenge to sit down and look at a movie that you loved minute by minute, or did you find that you loved the movie more? How did you come out of that?
I did find that after a while of doing that, of like, okay, I'm watching a movie, quote unquote, for homework. Like I'm not just sitting here to watch it. I'm watching 1 minute at a time. I'm taking notes. What am I going to say when we're recording? Like that kind of thing. I noticed that there was a while where I couldn't watch anything without those thoughts kind of happening.
Yes.
Oh, here's how I'm going to phrase this comment about a movie that I'm not even doing a podcast about.
I can relate.
Exactly. I'm sure you can. Yeah. Your brain just sort of gets into that, I don't know, that rhythm or that routine or something.
And you start going, who is that actor? What else has he been in?
Yeah. Oh, no, I got to look wait, I don't have to look that guy up. I'm just watching a movie.
I think I hit IMDb more than my email on my phone.
Right.
By the way, these skills will serve you well when you eventually see Tenet.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Great. Okay.
Taking notes for the next time.
Don't look at your cell phone and don't go to the bathroom because you will be lost.
Awesome. But yeah, somebody was saying earlier that, stretching a movie out minute by minute can either make it great or awful. And I think I've had both experiences with each movie that we've done so far. Like, by the end of like Temple of Doom, I remember I was like really, really cranky. I was like, please, let's kill ourselves and stop doing this. I've just had it. Please, no more Indiana Jones. I'm just so done. But now I look back on that season, I'm like, oh, that was a lot of fun. I like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's a good movie. So yeah, sometimes it feels like a job sometimes. You know what's interesting? It mostly feels like a job like on the build up to recording. Like lining up a guest, and I'm sure you guys know this too, lining up a guest, working out schedules. Oh my gosh, do they have a mic? Oh my gosh, are they going to be in an echoey room and all this stuff? Like all that kind of stress about like, how's the actual recording going to go? But then when you're actually doing it, you're like, oh, this is fun. I'm having a nice time talking to my friends and some cool guy. And we're just talking about a thing that we all like. And it's like, I could have a lot worse problems. This is really cool. I'm enjoying this.
I think you're absolutely right. The pre-production and the elements leading into recording always just cause the most angst.
Yeah.
But once you start recording, you're just having a good time, having a good chat with folks that love the same thing you love. And you're picking it apart, but doesn't matter. We used to do that all the time as kids anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. So why not share it with the world?
Well, and I also have really enjoyed the folks that I've met in the movie by minute world. There is a lot of camaraderie, a lot of fellowship there. We try to get together every year. We did it virtually this year, and that was a lot of fun. And just getting to know these people from literally all over the world now, who share that same love of movies and entertainment. It really makes it a lot of fun. And so that's been one of my favorite things. But I know when we went through Young Frankenstein, when we finished the season, I was like, man, this has been such a blast. I hate it, that it's over. Kind of had that same feeling that Gene Wilder had of, can't we do more? Can we do more minutes? At the end of Blazing Saddles, I was kind of done with Blazing Saddles. I kind of had, and we did rush through it a little bit differently than we did Young Frankenstein, but Blazing Saddles, as great as it is, I didn't feel like we had as much to talk about. And,
it's interesting.
But we also had that.
Hey, Tom, you want to be my co-host starting next season? I think Walt
sure.
just ended his resignation.
Yeah.
Sure sounded like it.
Well, I also kind of felt the weight of that 500-pound bag of concrete on my shoulders of nearly every week feeling like we needed to re-explain some of the same stuff over and over again. And
sure, yeah.
And that was tough. But, I mean, it's part of the movie, and it's part of why we, like the movie, because the message is so good. But, and also too, I think one of the really fun things about it is being able to sit down with friends every week and do the same thing that we've done our whole lives. And that's talk about movies and, what did you think about this? And how about that part and quoting lines and all that. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, while we're finishing, well, I shouldn't say finishing because there's a couple of things on the podcasting and we want to get to your authorship in just a minute. You guys made it through the first 3 movies, pretty much bang, bang, bang. You decided we're going to get them done. Then you took a little bit of a break.
Yes.
And you came back finally with gangbusters for the 4th one. You guys decided we're going to tackle Crystal Skull. And you made it halfway through. What happened?
Was it even halfway through? I'm not even sure.
Well, I don't know.
you knocked out a chunk.
And let's use the right verb tense. I'm not sure what it's called, but the future. We're still working on it. We're not giving up on Crystal Skull. We're gonna come. I don't know what actually happened. I think we literally just didn't plan very well, and we had this huge cushion before we even released the first episode of I don't even know how many episodes, and we're like, okay, we're safe. And then somehow we got through the holidays and just ate up the entire thing and didn't have anything. And we're like, I think we have to take a break. And a week after we took a break, maybe a month after we took a break, there was this thing called COVID that kind of blanketed the entire earth. And I'm like, this seems like, I guess we're kind of off the hook right now. No one's going to hold us to
woo.
Okay. Thank God. Thanks, COVID. But yeah.
Right.
See, there's a silver lining in everything.
See, it's never straight up and down. There's always good and bad and everything.
Straight up and down.
It's like the old ancients, the wheel and the woe. You have the blessing and the curse.
There you go. See?
The curse is that people drop dead. The blessing is we get a break from our podcast.
I don't have to watch Crystal Skull as much.
Look, but the thing is, what I noticed, you guys started arguing so much about Temple of Doom, how none of the things made sense when you were breaking it down a minute at a time.
Yeah.
And then you went back and said, but when you just watch it all together, it's so much fun. Who cares? You're finding the mirror opposite, it seems, with Crystal Skull. Your minutes were like, this was really a well shot. The lighting is good here, or this is an interesting angle. This is well done here. I love the stunt here. Then you watch it all at once. You go, this is horrible. What are we watching?
Right. As long as you don't mention the plot or
that's the thing.
The writing.
We did find, I think we're making a concerted effort to not over the top, but to some level, we're saying, okay, let's not just bag on this movie because some people like this movie. It's not the worst movie ever made. We have serious problems with it, but it's Indiana Jones. Come on, let's just have fun. We'll find the good stuff and we'll talk about the good stuff if we can. There's been a lot of that, and there's Harrison Ford's awesome in it. I think Shia LaBeouf has got a bad rap. I think he's really good in that movie. I think he's one of the best parts of the movie for the most part. And but yeah, when you get to the stuff that we keep sticking on is this plot does not make any sense. You've mentioned, re-explaining stuff over and over again. Okay, wait, all right, everybody stop. When did Marion write this letter that she sent to Indiana? Wasn't she in some, communist camp, something? She was, the Russians had it. None of the script does not make a ton of sense. And that's very frustrating, but we are having fun trying to find the little nuggets of gold and taking it for task in a hopefully just way.
So do you feel if Crystal Skull came earlier in the series that it would have killed the series, or do you think that people would have given it a chance to?
That's interesting. If it had come out before, everyone sort of in a general way think of Last Crusade as well, they were course correcting. They were reversing course from Temple of Doom, where they tried something a lot different from Raiders. And let's just make Last Crusade very Raiders-ish. Well, all the elements you love from Raiders are going to put in Last Crusade. So if Last Crusade had somehow come out after Crystal Skull, 2 movies in a row maybe, where people were I don't know if they totally are nailing it. I don't know. and they just did a full like, okay, you want Raiders, you got some Raider stuff, and that had redeemed it. Maybe, I don't know. That'd be interesting.
What if rather than Temple of Doom, Crystal Skull was the second movie?
Oh, interesting. See, I don't know. I like Temple of Doom, man. I like it.
Right.
And it's so hard. The other
Have
huge
you gone
factor,
back and listened to your minutes? No.
I know exactly. Well, the other huge factor is, and I know you guys know this too, is nostalgia. Like how much of my love for Temple of Doom has to do with it was 1984. You know, one of these movies is the summer of 1984, and the other is the summer of 2009 or whatever. So I was like, I don't know. Like, you know, I on a very base level, I just don't have the same feelings about one of these movies as I do to the other. You know, like even like filmmaking almost doesn't enter into it in a certain way.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with the Raiders franchise, much like with talking about the style of Bonds, if you want to find a parallel, the world's grown up around because it took too long to get the next one out. If they had sort of done Bonds every 3 or 4 years, not Bonds, but Indiana Jones every 3 or 4 years, it would have slowly evolved. I think making the leap to 20 years later, seeing a much older Harrison Ford trying to make it a Cold War story, I think it was just too far a leap. And then you still want to do something fantastical and you do Aliens. It just feels now, okay, we went from mysticism and religion where we kind of see where that comes from to this is hokey.
Right. And I mean, most people agree with you and I mostly agree with you, but I still feel like there's a quantum reality out there where this exact idea for an Indiana Jones movie worked really, really well. Like they somehow made it work, like the alien thing and the being in the 50s thing. Like I don't hate the idea of that idea, but the execution of it is dumb.
Oh yeah, point taken. I think, you know, had they handled maybe an alien contact like the movie The Abyss, might have been better.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, something not
where you couldn't tell. Are we dealing with some form of life on Earth we've never run into before? And only until the end do we realize the big reveal. It is something maybe otherworldly that's sort of there keeping an eye on us.
Yeah. And it's also tough because you can feel the push and pull between like Spielberg and Lucas trying to, okay, it's science fiction, but it's let's make it a little fantasy-ish, a little more vague, a little more otherworldly. You know, there's that really awkward push and pull between the ideas, and you can feel it. And at the end of the day, you're like, space between spaces? Okay, I guess. All right. You win, movie. Congratulations.
Yeah, you win, guys, with $1 billion budget.
Yeah. Wah.
It's not so much they won as we just all stopped fighting.
Right. Yeah. That's the other thing. We're all black and blue from the Star Wars prequels at that point. We're like, all right, this is what we get, I guess. All right.
Yeah, we're like, that really sucked. This isn't that bad.
Yeah, I guess it's the nicest thing. We don't get nice things, but I guess this is okay.
We don't get anything new.
Right.
We get a Barbie house that says Planet of the Apes treehouse on it, but, you know,
right.
Whatever.
Sure.
Well, let's talk about a couple of the other podcasts before we get to your books, because I do want to plug you as an author. I know my girls have really enjoyed one of your books, and I will even tell everybody in just a second what a cool thing you did for them for Christmas, the one year that I bought them each a book. But you did a couple of other podcasts as well with some buddies. You did the Blues Brothers Minute. I think that was an evolution out of the Caddyshack Minute, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. We were.
That was a great show. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I have a lot of fun with those guys. It's very loose, and we all get a little cranky, and it's fun.
There was something in the first episode, and I wish I could remember what it was. I should have gone back and re-listened to this. But one of you asked a question in the first episode, and I was like, I have had that question since the first time I saw this movie in the theater, and it was like I loved the podcast from then on. It was
excellent.
Like, y'all were really speaking my language. So
now I got to re-listen and find out what that question was.
Yeah, I do too. But it was. But I've always
There's
loved
my
that movie.
co-host. Woohoo!
That's just, it's all, yeah. There was something vague out there that, yes, it was
something
meaningful.
I responded to, yeah.
Yes.
It was so awesome. It touched my soul. It was something that I've been thinking about my whole life. What was it? No idea.
Yeah, I can't remember what's for dinner. So, but I've always loved that movie, and I've always been a big John Belushi fan. I remember him in his early days on Saturday Night Live, and so the fact that y'all appreciated the movie as much as I do, and you know, there's so much trivia that I was like, I did not know that.
Right.
So
that's just an exciting movie, you know?
It is.
Like I'm just like some sort of basic I don't know if it's it is part of it's the music. Just like, my God, that scene with Aretha Franklin in the diner.
Oh my gosh. She's
she
so
says,
great.
You better think about the consequences of your actions. And he's like, oh, shut up, woman. And she goes, you better think. And the two women at the counter who are just sitting there eating lunch immediately become backup singers.
Yeah,
go,
that's great.
That's incredible.
That's well,
God,
it's just like the scene in the music store, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one great scene after another, very loosely tied together with a plot, you know? And,
yeah.
But the music is awesome. The acting is great. And I mean, you even have, you know, if you're a Star Wars fan, you got Princess Leia firing a
Right.
bazooka into the building. I mean, you've got everything you could possibly want. And even questions like, why did the good old boys band show up at 11 o'clock after the bar closed anyway?
Like
and then
3 in the
think they
morning.
were about to go on.
We're the good old boys.
It just doesn't make any sense, but it works somehow. And, it just... so anyway,
you guys.
Sorry, I'm not trying
like...
to revisit every movie you've done minute by minute, but I appreciate
That's
your
all right.
body of work.
Thanks.
Walt doesn't have any care. He doesn't edit a damn thing, so he
See?
has no idea.
Oh, I feel your pain.
I just have a good
Jerry
time.
of our
I
group.
just show up, have a good time, and leave the mess to Alan.
Yeah. Again, he's the Jerry of our group.
See? Yeah. You understand completely.
Every group needs a Jerry.
Yeah.
Do they?
Well, all right.
That is the eternal question, isn't it?
I love Jerry. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I do too. We all do.
He's not listening.
No.
So you guys, you mentioned the ABCD of the ABC Devo. What's it called? ABC Devo.
ABC Devo.
ABC of Devo.
Yeah, we
ABC
did
Devo.
every single Devo song in alphabetical order.
Wow.
We talked about.
Which is now, has this led, is it the same now 4 guys that have doing the ABCD of
Yes.
the original series Star Trek?
It is Pete the Retailer of the aforementioned Star Wars Minute, John Ingle from Alien Minute, and also now he's doing 007 by 7. They're doing Dr. No, 7 minutes at a time. That's super cool. And our friend Joe Maisel, and the 4 of us got back together to do ABCD TOS, the original series of Star Trek in alphabetical order. And we just launched
That's
that,
fantastic.
as we record this, I think our 3rd episode is coming out tomorrow.
Well, they're good. I know I'm at the very front side of it, and I will be, like I said, I've already subscribed, just haven't had a chance to start listening in. But I love classic Trek. If anyone has been listening in our audience for the season so far, I've been keeping tabs of where I am in the Next Generation. I decided I was going to binge that when COVID started, because I had not seen all of them that I was aware of. I'd always caught them on either reruns or replays. They had never caught them religiously. I was still in high school and then went to college, and so a lot of times I had other things on my mind than running home to watch The Next Generation. It's been awesome to watch them one after the other, one season after the other, just sort of, 2 or 3 here or there, not necessarily binging 8 in a row or something.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really digging the evolution of The Next Generation, and some of the things that may have sucked in season 1, they still laid the foundation for things and storylines that were coming.
Oh, yeah.
And to watch it kind of within short periods of one another, I've been just happy as heck. I've been good television for me.
Awesome. Yeah, I got to do that again. I love that show. Yeah, that was like it was like that and The Simpsons when I was, when those were out. It was like
well,
all our friends
I plan to go back and watch the original series afterwards, because it's been a long time, and I hear now with a cleaned up. Wait, which version are you watching? Are you watching the cleaned up graphics and inserted CG, or are you watching the classic, old VHS tapes?
It kind of depends, because they're both available on Amazon Prime. So it's really stupid because I have the originals on DVD, the untouched versions, but then I have to get up out of my chair and put a thing in a thing and turn on a machine and stuff. So I just usually do it on Amazon or Netflix, and both are available on there. So I kind of go in between. And we've talked about this on the show that, in this age of Star Wars being redone and everything, and special editions of stuff, they actually did a really nice job with the Star Trek original series effects. They don't go crazy on anything. They just sort of touch it up. They replace a shot of the ship with a nicer shot of the ship, and
but I heard it's pretty much the same passes. It's pretty much the same kind of time on screen. It's not distracting.
Right.
Yeah. It enhances it a little bit for me. I mean, I'm an originalist on a lot of the stuff, but they did not overdo it.
Yeah. In fact, even there's some stuff where you're like, oh, I wonder how they're gonna. Oh, they didn't touch it. That's so nice. Like it's like a goofy thing on like a view screen like diagram or something. Like, boy, that looks like a '60s science class or something. But it's so great. Look at it. They didn't do a thing to it.
Well, and you don't show like them beam down somewhere and there are extra animals around or anything like that. It's just the show a little bit more colorized.
Yeah, restraint.
That's awesome.
Respect. It's nice.
Yes.
So that's the most updated show that you're on. Are there any in the wings waiting, or is that it for now as far as as far as this current recording is concerned?
My my Caddyshack / Blues Brothers pals, Dan and Mike, we have been doing Operation COVID for we started in like March or so, and that's a little loose and here and there. We haven't recorded in a little while, but it's very cool, and it's mostly just like the aforementioned sort of hangout, not going anywhere show. Where we're just sort of like, chatting it up, hitting the usual things we would hit in Caddyshack or Blues Brothers. So that's still going. That's a going concern, and I enjoy it, but I'm not sure when the next one's coming out.
Excellent. And before we leave podcast, you guys do have, like some shows we do as well, a Patreon page where you guys get a chance to say, all right, we were branded as Indiana Jones, but we love lots of different movies, and so this is a chance to play in other different playgrounds. How's that going?
It's going well. And in fact, speaking of COVID, you've heard of COVID, right? The whole COVID thing?
I'm aware of it.
Right.
My girls call it the Rona, but
Really? Wow, okay.
Word on the street that it's hip with the kids.
Yeah. They're all about it.
Oh, you haven't heard that? It's like, oh yeah, he caught the Rona. He's not coming to work today.
Oh no.
They're kids. How much did we take this kind of stuff seriously when we were their age?
Yeah. I remember Reagan getting shot, and I'm like, I don't care, I have to pee. And I was like, oh my gosh, the president was shot. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Gotta pee. But yeah, like during COVID, we decided early on, speaking of our Patreon show, we're like, you know what, we'll put this out as a bonus every time we do it. We'll put this out to the masses. And so we've been doing that over the summer and everything, and so that's been cool. And we've been covering Star Wars over there. We got the crazy idea to cover Star Wars for a while. Not minute by minute or anything like that, but we've just been just chunk by chunk, just sort of discussing it, and that's been cool.
Well, you've done some really cool breakdowns. Some of them are longer, like Close Encounters and Jaws, and some of them are a little shorter, like American Graffiti. But it doesn't matter. It's the same trio of voices that I've just come to really enjoy: the banter, the interaction, the friendship, the camaraderie. You guys could probably talk about the instructions on how to assemble a flashlight, and I'd still find it interesting because of that.
Let me write that down.
I'm serious. That is a good thing. That's because I've got some podcasts I listen to where they start diving deep into some of the video games out, and I'm like, I don't have a PlayStation that I play on. I'm a PC gamer, but they're so funny and they're so engaging and it's just witty. You just can't help but keep listening. And you guys have that same kind of quality.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That's beautiful to hear.
Well, it's true. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't. Trust me, I'm an asshole. So.
It means all the more coming.
He is, yes. Yes. This is a rare compliment.
Let's talk about your books, because you decided along this path to dabble in writing. Maybe you've had it your whole life. You're an editor by day, but more of the textbook variety with some maybe narratives in there. But you decided, I want to tell a story in memory of Todd Woods. Tell us a little bit about it.
It is a young adult novel that, I wrote a couple of years ago, put out there, self-published. It is about that time-honored story of the sort of love triangle, two best friends, both in love with the same girl. And, just kind of exploring what happens when high school friends, lifelong friends kind of have a big change. Not even necessarily a negative change, but just like a change. Things are not as similar as they was or familiar. Things go kind of weird. Everything's different after like yesterday. And how do you cope with that? What does that mean? Is it good or is it bad? Is it straight up and down? That kind of thing. And it's good. Yeah, it's that's the kind of story that was like percolating in me for a long time. And I was finally like, you know what? Why don't I write a book? I'll write a book, and that'll be the story.
Well, how have the sales been going? Because one of the things I know you, and I know a lot of people who are like you, it's easier to write the book than it is to self-promote.
Yes. That is
How's it
definitely
going
true.
though? Because
It's going okay.
Unfortunately, you have to self-promote today.
You do, yeah. That's like the full-time job, and it does not come naturally to me, but I am learning. I took a lot of like the early part of this year to educate myself on just the bare bones process of it, and just getting it in front of reviewers and onto sort of sites where readers and reviewers kind of aggregate and everything, and it's been okay. It's been good. It's been the process is kind of satisfying, and I'm getting some nice feedback, and it's good to have it out there. I have an audiobook version now too, so it's available on Kindle and paperback and audiobook, and that whole process has been very good. I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to doing it all with the next book too. Although I'm still trying to, I like even earlier today, I was like sending it out my second book, sending it out to agents and stuff to see if the traditional route is still available to guys like me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think that since your first book has been pretty well received, even as a self-published novel, do you think it's going to be easier to get in front of people and have them come on board? Or do you just kind of look at it and go, you know what, I'm pretty happy with how the last one did, and if somebody wants to jump on this one, great, but I'll go the other route?
Yeah, I think it's as I'm doing, sending out submissions and things to agents, I now have a little more to say about myself. That it is more just like, I'm a nice guy, you should publish my book. I can link to more things,
Right.
sort of showing my worth as an author and stuff. So that's good. But I do also, sort of in the back of my head have like, okay, I'll give this a while, trying to find an agent. If it doesn't work out, this, self-publishing is a totally valid avenue. And it's a lot of work, and it's a little bit of money, but I can do it. And just having it out there is going to be nice, no matter how it happens, because I'm really proud of this one. This new book that I'm working on that I'm basically finished with, but I'll always keep tinkering with it because you can't not. The Nearly Useless Power
George.
League. I know exactly, yeah. Exactly, yeah. I got that same disease that George Lucas has.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the Nearly Useless Power League, about some high school teenagers who suddenly find themselves with very strange and boring and basically useless superpowers and how that affects their lives. And one guy can go back in time 1 minute and 12 seconds, and he can only do it about every 10 minutes. So he can't just like keep going back or anything like that. And, it's like, okay, this is dumb, but it's kind of fun. But then it kind of leads to problems and issues and stuff. And, his best friend's got a thing where he can teleport, but he can only do it to a shoe store in New Mexico and then come back. And, okay, that's kind of handy, I guess. But, what happens if you like meet somebody over there and want to start a relationship or something? And, there's a lot going on. It's like these four people kind of become tight friends and sort of bonding around this bizarre thing that's happening with them. And at the end of the day, they're like, you know what? How is, we're all kind of at each other's throats. We don't understand what's happening to us. Life is confusing and bizarre. How is any of this different than if we didn't have superpowers? This is just life in high school in America. And it has this extra twist to it.
Well, it's funny. I can somehow relate to this because if I got struck by lightning or drank nuclear waste or something, I would end up with some useless thing. It would definitely not be something useful to me or humanity in general.
Right. But even just the fact that if you could, I don't know, make your fingertip glow blue or something, you'd be like, hey, look at that. Kind of neat, right? That's a power. Nobody else can do that. It's kind of cool. It's useless, but it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
So the question I have, did you come up with the quirks and then write the story? Or did you come up with quirks along the way because you wanted to have a device to keep the story moving?
I think it was mostly just the idea of like, the notion of kids just having these stupid powers that were. I think the first sentence I wrote, and this was years ago. I've been working on this for a long time. The first sentence I wrote was, and it's not even in the book anymore. But first sentence I wrote was, "Are you telling me you have a power better than talking to ants?" Like that was his stupid power. He could like talk to ants. And it was completely useless. He couldn't do anything.
Served Ant-Man okay.
It served Ant-Man okay. But he could get small and get down to their level and everything and stuff. But
well, sure, after you let enough Hollywood producers come in and tinker with your idea. But initially.
Right. But yeah, it's the idea of like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's clear by now that my head is sort of in that time frame, that stage of life, that the whole adolescent high school years and stuff. So yeah, what if you throw something unexplainable and interesting and annoying into that mix, and that kind of drives the story, but it's not necessarily the point of the story in a weird way, if that makes sense. I'm being cryptic.
Don't want to give too much of it away, right? Well, do you feel, I mean, I know you kind of just said it. So in terms of the age range, though, do you feel like the young adult fiction, that sort of coming of age audience, is where you just find yourself catering to? Is that because so many of the movies that you and I and Walt, we're all in the same age range, grew up loving? We were in our teens, early teens, like the tweens, teens, maybe even late teens in some cases, but we were still in that same age range you're kind of writing about now.
Yeah, I feel like not only do I love those movies and that just sort of genre of movie and everything, Fast Times, Ridgemont High and Valley Girl and all the John Hughes stuff and everything, but I don't know. I think there's something, maybe it says something about me that I'm like stunted or something, or like, I think I just kind of relate to that age, that period in life, that it's like kind of like you're on the cusp of adulthood. You're basically a kid, but you can drive and maybe you can vote, and you're beginning to understand that you're like a human being and that you have some sort of power or something, or maybe you have or you feel like you have none or something, or it's kind of like in Memory of Todd Woods, like these people are realizing like, oh, life is not going to be like this forever. Like what I'm used to is not life. Like something else happens after this. It's like adulthood, I guess they call it. It's just kind of like that, the energy and excitement of being on the cusp of that. I think maybe I'm drawn to.
Oh, as my girls say now, as they are in their first careers out of college, this adulting stuff sucks.
Yep.
Yeah, I can relate.
Yep. Doesn't get any better.
Like, no wonder mom's always angry. This sucks.
Yeah.
Like, well, when you have a couple of assholes like you for kids, just wait.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Your time will come.
Especially because they're little me's and have my attitude.
That's the worst part. When you go, oh, dear God, I see myself in you.
Yep.
That's why, no wonder Dad went to an early grave. I got it now.
That's why I don't like them. It's because they're too much like me. So.
All right. Well, before we move away from the interview piece, because we're kind of all caught up until the next big breaking thing, where we'll be more than happy to bring Tom back in future episodes or future seasons. We're kind of like the Johnny Carson show. As you have bigger successes, we figure we'll dovetail on those coattails and bring you back on. But what else is going on? Anything that we should know about that's sort of in the planning stages? A new novel outside of tinkering with this second one?
No. I think that's it. We were talking about all these podcasts I'm doing and these books and everything, and it's a lot of work. Yeah, I got a lot going on already.
I was going to say, you have a full-time job, you got a family, you got all this other stuff. Yeah, you got plenty of time for, that traveling volleyball league.
I mean, I have to say, I feel guilty every time I even approach this thought, but there are some things about this whole lockdown thing that aren't so bad. Like, and I don't have a commute anymore. I'm working from home, and that gives me like 2 hours back to my day for doing this other stuff. So it's kind of not so bad in some ways. I'm very lucky. I acknowledge that, a lot of people are having a much, much worse time than I am. I'm knocking on wood, but so far so good. It could be worse. I shouldn't have said that because now it's going to get worse.
Knocking on Memory of Todd Woods. So.
Exactly. There you go. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's, you actually, we talked to you before you even took a break in the green room, getting ready to come on. You're going to hang out with us for the remainder of the show.
If you'll have me, yeah, I'd love to.
Absolutely. And chime right in wherever you see fit, because that's the kind of show we have.
Cool.
All right. So we're going to move to our next segment. Hey, Walt, did we decide we're going to do the Bring Out Your Dead first, or we're going to do...
Yeah, let's go ahead with Bring Out Your Dead and get that rotting carcass out of the way.
All right. We've had such good feedback over what used to be put into the news segment with these really nutty obituaries that Walt has somehow managed to stumble across. Some people have led some interesting lives and are written about creatively as their eulogy. So let's go to our new segment that we are officially calling...
Bring Out Your Dead!
All right, well, our carcass of the week, this lady is something else. Kathleen Skunk Delholm
Wow. You had me at Skunk Delhome.
What a name.
Was born March 19th, 1938 to Joseph and Gertrude Skunk of Wabasso. I have no idea what state that is. She married Dennis Dello, and remember this, she married Dennis at St. Anne's in Wabasso in 1957 and had 2 children, Gina and Jay. In 1962, she became pregnant by her husband's brother, Lyle, and moved to California.
Uh-oh.
This takes a very dark turn.
Yes, it did.
Oh, no, it gets worse. She
boy.
abandoned her children, Gina and Jay, who were then raised by her parents in Clemens, Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Skunk. She passed away on May 31st, 2018 in Springfield and will now face judgment.
Wow.
She will not be missed by Gina and Jay, and they understand that this world is a better place without her.
Wow.
Now,
Gosh.
I didn't want to get into this family nightmare, but if you go out there and search for this lady, you will find the counterpoint obituary
Oh.
written by her children from her marriage to Lyle
Oh, boy.
that praises her as basically being a saint, and then the semi-retraction of this original one
Oh, my gosh.
by her original children, who basically say, we retract, but she still sucks, and we're glad she's dead. So
Wow. There's something refreshing about all this.
you just feel a whole lot better about yourself. So that's the Kathleen Delhome saga. Her last name, if you're interested, is Dehmlow. And if you don't have anything to do and want to feel great about yourself, go check out Kathleen's dueling obituaries.
That's amazing.
Ding, 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 ding.
Right.
And basically, don't be a skunk. Don't be
Yeah.
Kathleen.
Pretty straightforward
Moral of the
lesson.
story.
Yes. So that concludes our obituary of the week from Kathleen Skunk Delhome. Delhome.
Excellent. Well, I don't know where your resources are, but keep them to yourself. That's a playground I'm not interested in visiting anytime soon.
Well, you should see the ones I'm not bringing to the table yet. I mean,
I
there are
can only
some
imagine.
horrifying people out there that I did not know about.
Yeah, there's a fine line between comedy and horror, isn't there?
There really is.
Sometimes there is a fine line. Sometimes you want to highlight some of the disaster.
All right, well, let's move to our news segment, a segment we like to call...
It's no bullshit.
And Walt, you've got the first story.
I do. And this one comes to us from people.com. Dentist who removed tooth while on a hoverboard sentenced to 12 years behind bars.
Whoa.
What? What?
Wow.
You heard me right. So, a dentist in Alaska has been sentenced to more than a decade behind bars after he was found guilty of operating on a patient while on a hoverboard. Seth Lockhart, 35, was sentenced to 12 years in prison on Monday, 9 months after he was convicted of dozens of charges that include Medicaid fraud, reckless endangerment, and unlawful dental acts, according to the Anchorage Daily News, which I didn't know that unlawful dental acts was a law.
Yeah, really. What must have happened that they had to? We must fight this. We must come up with a law to protect people against this.
I guess it's this guy.
Notice it's plural. It's a covering an entire large body of things.
Right.
It's not just one thing. It's not practicing with a pick. It's like dental acts.
Right.
Acts, yeah. Well, and I think this guy had a bunch of them. So, additionally, Lockhart will not be allowed to practice medicine during his 10-year probation following his eventual release from prison. During the sentencing, Anchorage Superior Court Judge Michael Wolverton said that Lockhart's actions included sedating a patient for extended periods of time, darn near killed some people, the outlet reported. Lockhart will begin serving his sentence on December 7th, the Fairfield Citizen reported. While I do not doubt that I was able to render care and alleviate the pain to many people who were in dire need, I also know that I could have and should have maintained better discipline and focus while serving a patient base I came to love. The disgraced dentist said in a prepared apology in court Monday. Lockhart, who purchased Alaska Dental Arts in 2015 and changed the name to Clear Creek Dental, and his office manager, Shonda Cranfield, billed Medicare for unnecessary sedation procedures, according to court documents obtained by the Anchorage Daily News. The outlet reported that the duo fraudulently billed nearly $2 million.
Whoa.
Lockhart's trial included testimony from several of his former patients, including a woman who had a tooth pulled while the dentist was standing on a hoverboard.
Man.
Lockhart was caught in cell phone video pulling the unconscious woman's tooth before riding the hoverboard into the hallway and raising his hands over his head.
Wow.
In the January verdict, Wolverton said that Lockhart's own texts, photos, and videos contributed to the evidence against him. Perhaps most notable of all is the fact that his overwhelming amount of evidence was often supported and often in excruciating detail by Dr. Lockhart's own text, photos, and videos. Cranford accepted a plea deal in October and is set to be sentenced later this week, according to the outlet.
It's no bullshit.
So that is another reason not to ever go to the dentist.
Yeah, just brush your teeth and floss and hope for the best.
Exactly. But this guy is amazing, and there's actual video of him on this site of him on the hoverboard and then wheeling out into the hall. So
Wow.
He is a piece of work.
Well, he gets bored just sitting there.
Yeah,
Of course,
you got to
yeah.
spice it up somehow. Yeah,
Absolutely. And hey, man, you get a hoverboard, you got to ride that thing everywhere.
yeah. I'm not going to wait until I'm done with this patient to have fun with my hoverboard.
No. What's the point of having a Christmas gift if you can't use it all every time?
Right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I've got the next news story, and this one goes to show that it's not just Smokey Bear that knows how to combat wildfires. Did you know goats can too?
What?
I thought that might elicit a response. Now, as you're probably aware, the U.S. West Coast right now, as we're recording, is sort of on fire. From everything from gender reveal parties to people being caught in the act of arson, there are multiple blazes that are affecting millions of lives. Well, with the blazes spreading and emergency services battling 50-hour shifts, exploding trees, and choking smoke, it's no wonder the West Coast states are turning to some unorthodox solutions to help. Any solutions as long as they work. They're so desperate that even local fauna is being called upon to help. In Oregon, firefighters are going to be getting some badly needed aid. Story's actually written that way, by the way. Check this out. This is his business. A herd of 230 goats has arrived in the city of Forest Grove, just 25 miles from Portland. Over the next week, they will be tasked with eating all of the dry undergrowth in a 140-acre wood as a wildfire prevention measure.
Wow.
Now, it might sound like it's a bit off, but using sheep and goats is a fairly well-established firefighting method. Excess of dry vegetation is often one of the primary sources of fuel that ends up feeding these wildfires. So, feeding that brush to the goats instead of the fire could make the difference between an area getting maybe a little tinged versus an inferno. It's like that old saying, it's not dumb if it works. Now, according to the business,
Well,
by
I
the
don't
way,
know. I know some people who work who.
well, if it works out, how about that?
Okay.
According
we'll go
to
with
the
that.
Healing Hooves website, the goats do provide many other benefits in addition to cost savings. First of all, they can cover rocky and rough terrain, and it doesn't bother them at all. Instead of having to try to use mowers and other machinery, the goats happily munch away on plants that might even be harmful to humans, such as poison ivy, which I didn't know.
Wow.
Goats can help protect both crews and local residents since they reduce the need to use toxic herbicides or potentially dangerous machinery. Not only that, they get rid of these unwanted plants more effectively because while some things like mowers and cutters could leave the seeds behind, these little critters love to eat the whole plant all the way down to the bottom of the root, thereby eating the seeds as well, leaving less chance that you'll have anything grow later in its absence. The goats will consume all the plants and will eat roughly, check this out, an acre of vegetation a day.
Oh my gosh.
Man.
Now, I did cut out a piece of the story where people are like saying, hey, I got an overgrown backyard. Can we get them goats over here? It's like, no, Check this out. He's so well financed as a 230 goat operation. Those are too small. He's like, you'll have to get some of the 8 and 9 goat businesses behind me. I've got bigger fish to fry.
It's no bullshit.
Oh my gosh.
Get a bunny.
But yeah, I hadn't heard this until I read it, and I thought, okay, this is like a Babylon Bee story. This is like The Onion. Nope, true story.
Wow.
They're engaging in using goats to help get rid of a lot of that dry underbrush because they can eat so much of it so fast. Hey, it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You don't have to worry about buying feed, and the goats are happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
right.
does kind of make sense, even though it's crazy.
It's not dumb
And
if
it
it
works,
works.
apparently.
That
It's
is
not
my new
dumb
life
if it
slogan.
works.
Exactly, right.
Well, I was
Yeah.
thinking a couple of weeks back, we had a story of a goat that was bothering a police officer because it jumped in her car and started eating all the papers she was
Right.
trying to serve.
Fin-
So I wanted to do a
finally-
positive spin on the goat story.
Finally,
Yeah.
the goats are getting the good press that they've long needed.
They're getting their good Billy Goat's gruff.
Exactly. All right. Well, we're going to move to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Our friends to the north. The Edmonton Journal has this story. These are the personalized license plates rejected by the Alberta government.
Oh, these ought to be good.
So we're going to start off on a positive. Foul language, sexual references, and nods to social issues are among reasons the Alberta government has kept some personalized license plates off the road. From January 2019 to August 2020, the provincial government rejected 135 applications for vanity plates deemed inappropriate for Alberta roads.
Wow.
The province has a long list of reasons for rejecting personalized plates. They can allude to sensitive subjects or use offensive language, but they also can't be a lookalike of an existing plate, cause potential identification problems, or have titles including political and other things. Among the nixed plates were some references to COVID-19, where 7 Albertans tried to reference the novel coronavirus with plates such as COVID-19, Irona, COVID-5, and
What I love about Walt's cracking himself up, but we don't even know what he's saying.
well, here's my favorite, COVID-69.
That sounds good.
Another recent rejected plate was Dr. BS, which may express distrust in public health during the pandemic. Other proposed plates that allude to social issues also failed to get the green light. I can't read that one.
Well, why did you pick the story?
No, I'm reading some of these. The 51st state was one that apparently was not
Canada, the 51st state?
because some people in Alberta wanted to exit Canada and become part of the U.S. during the last prime minister's reign,
wow.
I guess. They've also rejected QAnon. QAnon is me.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to really admit that.
And other QAnon plates that promote the far-right QAnon conspiracy theory
Yeah,
that
right.
has recently gained prominence in the United States. Meanwhile, other I really shouldn't read this one, but I'm going to. Meanwhile, the FU Greta plate takes a shot at 17-year-old Greta Thunberg, who visited Alberta in October of 2019.
Oh my God.
Plates with references to political and social sensitivities were the most commonly rejected, making up about a fifth of all plates that the government decided was no good. Following closely behind were plates rejected because they contained sexual connotations. There were 26 such plates, including Please Be 18, references to slutty women,
Oh my
references to dance moves, and other things too risque to print. Similarly, in the foul language category, there were quite a few that were rejected. Albertans won't see such plates as A, B, C, D, E, F, U.
Yeah, that's creative.
Fast AF. Or
That was pretty good.
the dubious. Oh, no, I can't read that one. I meant to cross that one out. I just saved you some editing
So
there,
close.
Alan. It should come as no surprise that a handful of plates reference cannabis, which were rejected as in the drug's first year of legalization in Canada, such
Sure.
as cannabis, Cushman, and other plates, such as Mojito and Jaeger Bomb. The Providence also had a catch-all category for plates rejected as inappropriate. Convict, Widowmaker, and others such as Oilers Suck, referencing the Edmonton Oilers hockey team, were all rejected. Over the same time period.
Wow.
Where these plates were rejected, more than 11,000 were approved. To wrap up the article, they have an entire chart here of all of the rejected plates, which include Rum Bros, Wasted, Cannabis, DEA, Highball, You Pig, D's Nuts.
These nuts.
Sugar Dad, Nurple, which I don't know. And what was the other one? One Bad AZZ.
It's no bullshit.
So
One badass.
So if you are in Alberta and you have the idea that your real smarty, inappropriate license plate's going to get by, you are sadly mistaken. I just love that it was enough that they could actually have a whole article about this.
You know, they said it a whole lot about Q, but I wonder if I could have put 4Q on there.
That might have been pushing it, Alan. We could try, though. Let's move to Alberta and find out.
Just put 4 Qs in a row. What is that? It's 4Q. Oh, well, 4Q if you don't want to tell me.
Well, with the two panels that are reviewing these things, I would hope that they would have caught that one.
Or maybe if you have a restaurant, you could have fork and you. Oh, that's a clever restaurant. Hey, come to 4Q and we'll stuff you.
Let's see, is that on here?
No,
it's not in alphabetical order.
See,
now that you're saying that, I'm like, it's got to be on here.
My rejection's hanging on the wall. Don't worry about it. So anyway, let's go to our last news story. I actually pulled this for a line for our guest because of his latest podcast, but after that last segment, it might have to do with the entire podcast in and of itself. There may be life after death, even if it's in the form of mushrooms. Yes, this is a story about what to do with the problem with burials. It's pretty safe to say, in general, we as humans like to live long and prosper. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hey. To that end, we're constantly developing new and innovative ways to stave off our eventual demise. And we're getting pretty good at it. The average life expectancy is rising pretty much all around the world. It's thanks to leaps in medical science, availability of better food, and other more esoteric technological advances like robots that care for the elderly that are helping to keep us alive longer. But despite all of our rage against the dying of the light, the rules of the great game of life say eventually it must end. Not to be morbid, but guess what? All of us in the listening audience, at some point, we're all going to die. So here's where we're running into a bit of an issue. With the constantly growing human population, there are more living people on Earth than ever before. The problem arises when the masses of living people become dead. While ways to dispose of the deceased vary from cultures, by far the most popular is the good old-fashioned burial. Well, unfortunately, that's also the most inefficient method. Many places in the world are running out of burial space, so now a Dutch biotech company called Loop has taken a further step in cultivating the circle of life, hence the name, Loop. With their invention, a fun guy from life can literally be turned into fungi in death.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't write this.
That was beautiful.
The vessel for that grand transformation is being called the Living Cocoon. That's a fancy name for what's essentially a biodegradable coffin made out of fungus spores, microbes, and plant roots. The coffin, covered on the inside with soft green moss. I mean, you got to keep the dead comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
The Living Cocoon offers the corpse an all-natural ticket back to the cycle of life. Once buried, the presence of groundwater activates the fungi in the coffin, and the decomposition process begins. According to the Loop team, the coffin itself is even biodegradable within 35 to 45 days, and the corpse will be gone within a few years, according to this, roughly 3 years, leaving nothing but fungus and nutrient-rich soil behind. So that's the eventual benefit. You pass your body on to the new life behind you, the coffin already being test driven by one person was recently buried in The Hague. If Loop would have its way in the future, we would not visit our loved ones' somber graveyards, no place to play and look for ghosts, schools, and goblins. Instead, we'd pay our respects in the midst of a lush woodland teeming with life.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
Huh. I don't hate that idea.
No.
I don't either. I thought it was just an interesting story. When I saw Live Long and Prosper, I'm like, it's got Tom Taylor written all over it.
Yeah,
I know what
changed my
I'm buying
mind.
him for Christmas.
I don't want to be stuffed and left in my living room. I want that now.
No. Yeah.
So
I want to be able to come back as a zombie.
yes, exactly.
In all honesty, I mean, by the way, this episode will come out as we start October, so we're in the Halloween mode. So I kind of thought about picking a story somewhat around the holiday, but I wouldn't mind going out this way. I don't know that I have a whole lot of say-so when I'm done anyway. So do what you got to do.
Right. Nice.
It's not bad. I know it's not as super funny as License Plate that Walt couldn't read properly, but you know, we're good.
But you could read it. You could read the whole
That's
thing.
right.
That was
I
nice.
got through it. Well, all right. Let's go ahead and get to our last segment. We love to give some feedback to our audience and maybe give them suggestions about what we're watching and what we might be reading and what we're listening to, or podcast shout-outs. So, Walt, I'll go to you first, and then we'll go to Tom, and then to me, and we'll go around the horn. First up, what are you watching or streaming? What are you binging, Walt?
Well, I got down the rabbit hole with this show that just dropped on Netflix. J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot came out with a great documentary. I think it's 4 episodes or 5, called Challenger: The Final Flight.
Oh, I saw that. I didn't see it, but I saw the advertisement for it.
Well, it kept popping up as you want to watch this, and I finally was like, yeah, well, hey, I remember where I was and all that good stuff. It is really interesting. They interview family members, they interview other astronauts, they interview some of the people that were in the room in Houston. It is really fascinating, and of course, we know a lot about what happened already, but just seeing the process of what happened and how these folks were just such accomplished, great, amazing people who just they had the world by the tail, and they're going up on this flight, and just by pure negligence, they get killed, and get killed in front of the world. Everybody's watching, and this happens. And kids in classrooms were watching it because the first teacher going into space was going up. And it's sad, but it's also a really well done, tremendous documentary. It gives you some real insight into the space program and how it's changed since then. So I highly recommend it. I think it's one of the best documentaries I've seen in a long, long time. JJ and his team did a great job with it, so I highly recommend that. Also, I found out that a lot of the 007 movies are out on Netflix and on Amazon Prime right now, so I'm kind of plowing through some of those. Got through Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace this week. And then also I watched the movie American Assassin. I guess after listening to that podcast last week about the Winds of Change story, I got into all these spy espionage things. But American Assassin's a good movie. Not the best movie you'll ever see, but it is entertaining.
Isn't that where they were trying to hopefully launch the series of books by, the author just jumped out of my head. He writes a lot of these techno thrillers that have to do with, he's the guy that his girlfriend dies on the Lockerbie.
The Mitch Rapp series.
Yeah, Mitch Rapp. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yep.
I heard that it was having a struggle getting off the ground and that it was an okay movie, but I don't know if there's going to be enough fuel there for a second.
I don't think there is. It's a good movie. You'll enjoy it, but it's not. I didn't feel like it was a great launching pad.
Is it Michael Keaton though, like the hinge pin that like gives the performance that's worth watching?
Oh yeah, Michael Keaton is awesome in it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean he's awesome in everything he ever does, but he is really good. And I kind of get the feeling that if they can get those two actors back together again, they might be able to salvage the series. Otherwise, they're going to have to reboot it. But it is a good movie, but it would be a rough start for the series. I just didn't think they quite got off the ground well, but it's worth watching.
Okay, so like a 5 out of 10?
Oh, I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a lot higher than what it sounded. Okay.
Well, you know me, I'm kind of like, hey, if they shoot a lot of people, blow stuff up, then they're going to get an extra couple of stars. Yeah, hey, you'll get some extra stars out of me. And,
Okay.
And then, of course, Casino Royale, I thought was one of the best written Bond movies I've seen in a long time.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And
Yeah.
I just thought Daniel Craig was amazing. And that really pushed him up on my Bond list because he did such a great job in that film.
And by the way, Quantum of Solace is probably the weakest of the Daniel Craig Bonds, but if you watch Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace almost back to back, it does make the second movie a little more, it does make it feel better rather than so much distance.
I've had that experience.
And that's what I did. About 3/4 of the way through, I was like, yeah, boy, this is not Casino Royale, but it was still good.
Yeah, it was a lot better than my first impression when I saw Quantum of Solace 3 years from the first, or 4 years, however long. I was like, what the hell is this? It does make more sense when you watch them back to back.
It does.
Anything else you're watching?
Yeah, but those are really the big ones I wanted to talk about. I'm hitting the old Simpsons on Disney Plus, and of course, waiting with bated breath for the Mandalorian to drop.
Oh yeah,
yeah, awesome stuff. Tom, let's move to you. You're obviously got a pulse on culture, whether it's binging older movies or watching brand new stuff. What have you been doing in the Taylor household?
It is sort of a mix of the new and the old. With my son, we've been he's been into The Simpsons now for about, I don't know, 2 years, which means that we're up through like season 17 or something like that. So yeah, we've been watching a lot of that, and then also recently we did all of 30 Rock with him. The sitcom,
oh yeah,
which is great
show.
And then now we're into Parks and Recreation, which is great.
Another great show. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's slightly older stuff with him, just a few years old. And then once he goes to another part of the house, my wife and I are watching Lovecraft Country on HBO.
Oh, how is
That's
that?
super cool. It's really good and really weird. It's I'm glad they're doing it. It's hard to describe. I mean, it's horror, like Lovecraftian horror. And it all seems to be building to something, like going somewhere. But every episode is very, not standalone, but it's like definitely its own kind of horror idea that they're going after and that they're trying out and they're applying these characters to and stuff. It's very cool. I'm enjoying it. And my wife was excited because she realized in the first episode they filmed in her old hometown of Elburn, Illinois.
Oh, wow.
And she recognized it and she was very excited.
Would it be along the lines of like an X-Files?
No, it's more like you could almost see how you would think that, like from the commercials and stuff. But it's this family. It's like a guy and his uncle, and I don't think she's related to this. And this girl, they go on this trip. It's like in the 50s, and the uncle, they're all African American, and the uncle writes this guide for, as a black person, how to travel safely across the country. What are some places you can go to where you'll be welcome? Where to watch out for and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, which I didn't even know that was a thing, but that makes total sense. And the main character's dad has disappeared and left some clues that he might be in what they call Lovecraft Country, this place in Massachusetts, obviously, for anybody who knows anything about Lovecraft. And so it's this whole, he discovers that he and his ancestors were involved somehow in this ages-old cult, and we don't know what they're up to, but they're trying to find it's like the language of Adam. It's like connected to like the garden. They're trying to get to the Garden of Eden somehow, this cult. But the black characters are like, well, wait, we could use this magic as ours. We could use this for us to like help us and our people. So it's like there's these two totally not different ideas, but very strong, but not necessarily what you'd put together ideas of like the black experience in the 50s in America and this kind of Lovecraftian horror thing. And I'm still kind of not sure how to talk about how they come together, but they're cool.
Cool.
It's very cool. And they just had an episode recently that was very, very Indiana Jones and kind of Goonies-ish, where they like, they have to break into a museum, and underneath the museum, there's this crazy labyrinth and everything and stuff like that. And you got very strong Indiana Jones vibes off of that, and that was cool.
Huh.
So yeah, I recommend that. Perry Mason on HBO is also very cool. We just finished that. That's only like 8 or 10 episodes long. And when I heard about it, I was like, that doesn't look like Perry Mason to me, because it's like, I'm used to like the TV show and stuff from the 50s. But this is him sort of before he's a lawyer, and he's just sort of like a kind of schlubby sort of gumshoe kind of guy, and like private investigator. And it's very cool. It's very got very some sort of like Chinatown sort of feels to it and stuff. Sort of like a little small, seemingly intimate crime committed that actually turns out to be connected to this much bigger thing. That's very cool. And I think that's what we've been watching lately. Oh, and the show Insecure. Oh, God, we're only watching HBO Max. I got HBO Max on a whim. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to watch HBO Max. Insecure is this very good show, just about like relationships and kind of people younger than me, but they might consider themselves adults.
Yeah,
gotcha.
My kids, they're younger than me. They
so
think
you're the
adults.
break line between adults and kids. So
yeah, exactly.
if they're younger than me, they're kids. If they're older than me, they're adults.
Maybe, yeah. But these people are younger than me, and they're not kids, so I don't know what to do with that. But yeah, it's just a good sort of comedy drama about a woman trying to find and hold on to love and a career and stuff, and she and her friends, and it's very cool. And that's what we've been watching lately. Yeah.
So you're kind of giving a thumbs up to the HBO Max.
I kind of am. I didn't realize. I'm like, okay, I think we got it because of Lovecraft Country. It sounded interesting. Oh, we'll try it out. It's like a free month or something. But then it turns out, I guess we have to watch every single show that's on here. All right. Working out.
Well, for me, I didn't have as much TV watching this past week. I did start finally season 2 of Longmire. And Walt, you were absolutely correct. The second season gets much more rolling along. You said, watch for it. You're going to start being on wheels. And it does seem to be finding its footing. I've enjoyed watching the characters develop in season 1, but season 2 has me much more interested in the season and the series. So in the middle of that. And as you heard at the beginning, but I'll talk about it a little bit now, I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. Did go to the theater to see the first, quote, blockbuster finally released in the theater. I know there was a couple of other movies released along the way, but for me, this was supposed to be that big epic one that was going to be released early at IMAX theaters all across the country and all across the world, and finally got to see Tenet. And if you notice the name, it's a palindrome. The whole idea of whether you're going forwards or backwards, it's the same. It is one of the most awesome space-time continuum stories I have ever watched. It takes the tropes and turns it on its head, but yet still follows the same rules and logic that we think we know. It's incredible. The set pieces, as you make your way through the story, you've got these giant set pieces you're making your way through. If you've probably seen the trailer, there's one involving a huge cargo jumbo jet that I could just see Christopher Nolan pitching to the producers. Oh, by the way, I need about $30 million of the budget to buy a jet that I plan to crash into a building at the airport. Is that okay?
Nice.
It is incredible. And then every single set piece ends up being somewhat repurposed because of the way the story goes. And so without giving a lot away, it is a Nolan movie. The Nolan, the Christopher Nolan style of writing and directing is, my audience is smart, and I have to assume that because I'm not going to slow it down, I'm not going to dumb it down. I'm going to tell you my story, and you're just going to have to keep up. And I'm going to tell it in a very just fantastic way with a soundtrack that in and of itself is its own character. I've always been a fan of Hans Zimmer. I'll just leave this as a little tease. You'll notice that Hans Zimmer uses a lot of sort of electronic music and a lot of the use of sort of the rising, I forgot what they call this term. It's a music term where you have the treble, the bass, and the mid each separately start to rise to a crescendo and then fall off. But if you space the three apart, it feels like it's never stopping rising. It just continues to feel like it's rising and rising and rising. Used it a lot in The Dark Knight, used it in Inception. And what he's done now is he said, okay, I can take that music, and if I reverse it, it still sounds like it's going forward unless you really are paying attention. You realize, oh my God, the soundtrack is also moving backwards. So it's incredible. It is. I cannot say enough about it. I've only seen it once. I'm going to go see it again. I think I enjoyed it from start to finish. There are a lot of people online saying, yeah, there's dialogue that was really soft or muffled. It was hard to hear. And then you're hearing people say, well, that was intentional because Christopher Nolan really wanted you to be focused, not looking at your phone, not on social media, not eating your popcorn, literally just staring at the screen and soaking it all in. I don't have a problem with that, but I hear some people complaining, but in and of itself, I give it a solid A. It is a great Nolan movie, and I will go see it again in theaters while it's still out. And it belongs to be seen in the theater. It's that kind of a spectacle.
Good.
Awesome.
I'll definitely have to see that.
Uh-oh. You guys still there?
Yep, still here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wait, there you go. I pulled my cord out of my ear. There we go. I'm like,
You blame us.
I'm like, Jesus, this is the
Really?
most quiet review of anything. I'm like,
Come on, you jackasses.
Come on, guys. Work
He's
with
like,
me.
look at this guy just won't shut the hell up. I mean, god dang. How long
Well, I
can
mean,
you talk about-
Tom was snoring, but,
So, all right,
No,
now I've got
you
you in
can-
my ears. All right.
you can fix that in post.
Well, let's
Yeah,
quickly
please do.
let's quickly get to Walt then on what are you reading, if anything. Now, we may not have everything every week in every category, but I always like to ask if there's anything that you're digesting right now, book wise.
Well, I'm finishing up the first book out of that Bosch series, and I just ordered the pre-order of Seinfeld's new book. So that is going to drop, I think it's October 6th. So he's basically going back and re-looking at a lot of his material and stuff like that. So it's called Is That Something? And so it looks like he's going to kind of talk about the comedic process and things like that. So looking forward to picking that up. But yeah, I should definitely have the Bosch book done by then and then start on that one.
All right. Tom, what about you? Anything that you're reading right now?
The last thing I just read was sort of homework for one of my shows, but it's very cool and I recommend it. It's Harlan Ellison's City on the Edge of Forever. It is not only his original screenplay for the episode of Star Trek City on the Edge of Forever, but it is like it opens with an introductory essay that's about 50 pages long and with multiple page long footnotes and side things and stuff because he's furious. He's a very angry man. And he hated his experience on Star Trek, and he was heavily rewritten in, and they took a screenplay away from him and everything. So it's a very interesting and educational read.
A lot of people
I-
consider that
yeah.
one of the best of the original series episodes. That
Is
you
my
hear that all the
favorite
time.
of all Star Trek episodes. That's my favorite episode.
It is nearly perfect. It's awesome. Yeah, and it's interesting to see his original screenplay, which you can see why they needed to work on it because it wasn't necessarily a Star Trek teleplay. But, his original is great, and then the episode is possibly greater. So, yeah, it's cool to compare the two.
Folks,
Find out what
when
went on behind it.
we get to the plugs, you got to be signing up right now. ABCD:TOS. You got to get this podcast because you're going to learn all about it when it comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Since we're talking about what you're listening to, because I'm not reading anything right now, I got too much going on. But let's go to what we're listening to. Walt, anything that you're listening to, music or podcasts?
I'll throw a podcast in. Somebody had mentioned this. I can't remember if it was on our show or not, but there is a great podcast called In Research Of. And one of the guys on there is an archaeologist, and I don't remember what the other guy does, but they are taking episodes of the old show In Search Of and going through and kind of taking a look at them. And did they get it right? Did they not get it right?
Oh, wow.
And it is fascinating. The archaeologist went into this big long thing about how they totally blew this whole archaeological thing on the episode about alien astronauts. And they had drawn all these conclusions and everything. And he's like, now here's why they're totally wrong. And I remember that episode like I watched it yesterday. So it was great going through that. But again, it's called In Research Of. It's the old Leonard Nimoy. And I had forgotten about this, but did y'all remember that the first episode of In Search Of had the guy from the Twilight Zone, Rod Serling,
Oh, really?
as the host
Wow.
instead of Leonard Nimoy. Nimoy came later. So,
Crazy.
I didn't realize that at all. So, anyway, check that out. It's really good. I think they've got about 10 episodes out right now, so you can kind of catch up quick.
Awesome. Tom, what about you? Obviously, you're involved in like all of the other podcasts, but what else? What might you be listening to?
I have actually been trying to listen to more music lately because lately my
Okay.
my go-to sort of background thing is usually like stories or podcasts or something. So, and I feel like my music knowledge and appreciation is falling off. But my Indiana Jones Minute co-host and I were having an argument about, not an argument, but a debate, a probing debate about why some people just hate classic rock or certain classic rock bands. And Steely Dan kept coming up. So I put on some Steely Dan the other day and I had a great time.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, great band.
So were you just doing like the Amazon Echo thing, play me the hits of, or did you have a particular album, or how were you kind of hitting it?
I wanted to find Dirty Work. That's what I wanted to start with, because I had that, like Jerry Porter, my co-host, was saying like, Steely Dan, I don't know, I don't care. I'm like, put on Dirty Work, you big idiot, and tell me that's not a great song. And he did, and he's probably still an idiot, I don't know. Didn't tell me exactly what he thought of it.
Well, that's awesome. Any other music? Because you know what, it's music and or podcast. Because I kind of feel like you, in some ways, because now that my kids are all out of the house, I'm not listening to anything that they think is cool now. So I'm definitely falling off what the kids are listening to. I try to every now and then keep a pulse on it, but I'm starting to develop that ain't music. Let me show you what music is.
Right. It all sounds the same.
What's with the reprocessed harmonics? You guys can't sing for shit. Let me put on some Neil Diamond. That's music.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't mind Neil Diamond.
No, hey, he's got some good songs. What are you going to do?
Hey, turn on your heart light, man. It's all about E.T.
I thought you said his good songs.
Yeah. Nice. Anything else you're listening to then, though? Any other music that you're trying to... Are you catching up on Cardi B? Are you like whapping at all?
Oh, gosh.
No, see, I'm totally... I've completely fallen off the cliff in terms of what's going on and today's stuff. Although, you know what? Sometimes like a Taylor Swift song will come on. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's talented.
Yeah.
What a good song.
That's how I feel. I almost feel like as I'm stumbling along, something will catch me and I'm like, oh, okay, so there is still someone putting out something that's catchy and you can dance to and not be afraid to listen to in front of your kids. Okay.
Right. That sounds like somebody wrote that song. It's got a melody to it and lyrics and everything.
What is this?
Yeah.
Well, the other day I thought I was awesome. I was listening to the Foo Fighters and I'm like, yeah, this is a little bit more recent. And then at the end, somebody says, can you believe that was 20 years ago? I was like, no, that was not 20 years ago. There's no way.
It's true.
Yep. Time doesn't stop. Anything else, Tom?
No, that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I've got 3 new podcasts. Well, one, we're going to remind each, because Walt just finished it, but I'm still in the middle of it. So we'll do it since we're on music. Wind of Change, a 7-part sort of a investigative journalist look at the Scorpions rock song, one of their biggest overall hits, The Wind of Change. And they're diving into the idea that it was actually written by the CIA as a means of getting some propaganda in the form of rock and metal into the Soviet Union to convince folks that if the wall fell in Berlin, we can break down the Soviet Union as well. And that they had this big metal rock concert, for the first time, they're going to allow these metal bands into Moscow. And they thought, well, if we have this song, maybe this song will get catchy and it'll give people the idea that we can change here. I don't know how it's going to go. Walt, you've already finished it, but I love it. It is done in an investigative journalist style, almost like you're listening to a transcript of like a 60 Minutes or something like that, but in a podcast, so you don't need any of the visuals. And I've been really enjoying that. I picked up a new podcast.
Well, you worked in intelligence, so
yes, I did.
I'm going to be real interested when you're done. There's probably some stuff you and I need to talk about off air.
Maybe. Maybe I don't need someone coming to get me in the middle of the night.
Right. Yeah, we both kind of have a little problem with that. But when you're done with it, let's take about 5 minutes on the show and talk about it, because there are some things about it that you're like, there's no way. And then you listen to it, you're like,
well,
holy crap.
I feel like I'm doing the Scooby-Doo thing. I hear something, and I was like, what?
Yeah, it's like, this is so crazy, it's feasible.
Right, it's like, it's so crazy, it just might work.
Right. So it's really a fascinating show.
The next one I stumbled across accidentally because of our good buddy Doug Greenberg with the Rocky Minute. He was on a podcast with Ryan Rebalkin, who Ryan normally does, his Slycast and his Stallone Minute, but he does a show that I didn't realize called The Worst of the Best, where they take whatever the topic is, pick the top 10 most paid celebrities. And of the top 10, which is the worst of that top 10? Because they're all great, but somebody's got to be at the bottom of the list. And I just happened to stumble across the worst of the best when they were going through volume 1 and 2. So it's a 2-part series of the Anthrax Anthology, or the Anthraxology, I think is what they call it. And so they broke down disc 1 and then disc 2 as 2 different parts. And I just remembered listening to Anthrax a lot when I was younger. My brother was a skater, part of that whole 80s skate culture, riding skateboards and stuff, and watching videos. And Anthrax was huge to play. It was one of the 4 of what they call now the big metal bands. And so that was really cool. And so now I'm going through and listening to some other ones, because they'll just pick whatever the topic could be. It could be the best reviewed movies of 2018. We'll pick the top 5. Well, which is the worst of the top 5 or whatever. It's just kind of a neat concept that, yeah, they're all great. We all agree this is a great album. But if this is a great album, what's the worst song on this album? Huh. And it's kind of fun because you're learning a little bit about the music or about the movie or about the people they're talking about, and then getting their personal take on why they think which is the worst of the best. So that's a cool one. And then one I just stumbled across, Walt, you'd probably like this more than me, but the mayor of the city of Cartersville is a big fan of the Dan Le Batard Show, a sports talk show that's a podcast. So a bunch of fans of the Dan Le Batard Show decided to do a show called Lauer After Hours. And so they talk about sports in a kind of homage to the Dan Le Batard Show. And apparently the mayor of the city in which I live has been on several episodes. So I'm checking that one out just to hear their sports discussions, especially in light of sports coming back or slowly coming back and what's going on in the world of professional and college sports. So it's called Lauer, L-O-U-R, Lauer After Hours. So those are the 3 that are new in my subscription feed that I've been trying to battle through. I do want to take a second and give some shout outs to some friends of ours from other shows. And I'll do this very, very quick as we are rapidly over time. We are taking way too much of our guest time, so we need to wrap this up. But our good friends at 60MW Podcast, The Real Queens of Queens, The Bad Cop Show, Geek to Me Radio, BK on the Air, Escape Pod Podcast. I added this because it is in my new subscription feed, and they are going to be good friends of our show because Tom Taylor's here. But the ABCD of TOS, as well as the Indiana Jones Minute. When I first discovered Tom, Pete, and Jerry, you guys need to really go back and binge the Indiana Jones Minute. Our good friends at the Marine Corps Movie Minute, and of course the aforementioned Doug Greenberg with Jason the Rocky Minute. So those are our good friends of ours. So check out those podcasts for stuff that we like talking about. If we like it and you like this, maybe you'll like those shows as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Tom, we are done. We want to say thank you so much for giving us some of your time and being with us today. It's been such a great time having you, not just learning about who you are and your background and where to hear you, but just having a great conversation about a lot of entertainment and stuff.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you guys so much.
And I just subscribed to the ABCD TOS.
Oh, beautiful. I hope you enjoy it.
So, yeah, I've got 5 hours of windshield time tomorrow, so I will knock out those 2 episodes.
Awesome.
Yeah, always good to do. All right, well, before we let our guests go, Walt, very quickly, where can people learn a little bit more about us and how to engage with us if they want to learn more?
Very quickly, the best place to go to learn more about us and engage would be at facebook.com/The Wilder Ride. Follow us there, and then there's a button that's going to pop up to join our listeners group. In the listeners group, you're going to have news about the show, all kinds of stuff about entertainment, all kinds of movies. There's really no limit to what goes in there other than no politics, no news of that kind. It's all just entertainment and fun.
And come back next Tuesday, because every Tuesday we release a brand new episode of our Listeners Lounge. You never know who's going to join us in the lounge, but one thing we can guarantee, it's always going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to meet some really, really cool people. Tom, once again, thank you so much for being with us here on the Listeners Lounge.
Thank you, guys. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
All right, folks, till next week for another edition of The Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. Oh my goodness, we could have just had a whole conversation about just Bond and then Star Trek and then back around to maybe Bond again. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
My wife was like,
Star Trek crossovers.
Yeah.
Do that next time.
Who could we get to be, like, who would Kirk play if he was in a Bond film?
Oh, wow.
Well, the question I was going to ask that I knew we didn't have time to cover is, could the current cast of Star Trek do City on the Edge of Forever?
Oh, wow. Wow.
So I didn't ask that on purpose. But I think it'd be a struggle.
Yeah. I'm not sold.